everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, November 14th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The Planning and Zoning Commission is a citizen advisory group to the City Council, charged with making recommendations concerning land use plans, planning processes, and or on matters of plan implementation. All regular meetings of the Planning and Zoning Commission are recorded for record retention and transcription. The following is the official agenda of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Discussion and commission action will be limited to those items on the agenda. Any citizen who wishes to address the commission shall first be recognized by the chair and shall give his or her name and address for the record or city of residence. If a citizen wishes to read documentation of any sort to the commission, he or she shall first seek permission from the chair. Oral testimony may be restricted to no more than 3 minutes per person. We'd also like to start off by extending an apology for having to reschedule this meeting to tonight. Here we are, and so here we go. Agenda item number 1 is the roll call and disclosure of conflict of interest, ex parte communication, and site visit. And so, Aislinn, if you would call the roll, and if each commission member would state their name and what area they represent and anything they may need to disclose.
Jared Burnt.
My name is Jared Burnt. I live up in the Highland area. I made a visit to agenda item number 3 and agenda item number 4, and I have nothing else to report.
Jack Moore.
My name's Jack Moore, and I live in the Old Town neighborhood. And I did a site visit for agenda item 3 and agenda item 4, and I have nothing else to report.
Sarah O'Connor.
I am Sarah O'Connor. I live in the college neighborhood, and I made a site visit to agenda item 3 and agenda item 4, and I have nothing else to report.
Dorothy Hicks.
Dr. Ricks. Hi, my name is Dorothy Ricks. I made a visit to agenda item 3 and agenda item 4. I have nothing else to report. Oh, I represent the Alameda area.
Julia Sanders.
My name is Julia Sanders. I live in the South Park area. I completed site visits to agenda items 3 and 4 and have nothing else to report.
Ryan Satterfield.
I'm Ryan Satterfield from the Highland area. I also did a site visit for agenda item number 3 and for agenda item number 4 and have nothing else to report. And Sean is excused this evening, so. Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 2 is approval of minutes. Commissioners, I assume you've reviewed the minutes. Any discussion or a motion to approve?
I motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
Excellent. So there's been a motion and a second. Aislinn, would you call the vote?
Burnt.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Ricks.
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
Satterfield.
Yes, motion carries. Agenda item number 3, public hearing for a conditional use permit. This time has been set aside for the commission to hear comments from the public regarding a request by Miracle Real Estate, represented by Holly Reading or Casey Jones, for a conditional use permit to allow self-service storage, U-Haul truck and trailer sharing, and related retail sales in the existing building at 3945 Pole Line Road. The property is located in a commercial general zoning district, which allows this use through the conditional use permit process. Now, where this is a public hearing, I do have a statement to read, just a little instruction on how public hearings will work. There's 6 different points here. The first one, when you come to the podium, please remember to address the commission rather than the audience. Number 2, each person wanting to speak will be limited to 3 minutes and will be asked to stop when time runs out. Number 3, keep questions and comments pertinent to the application. Number 4, please do not duplicate questions, concerns, or comments covered by a previous public comment. Number 5, as this is a public hearing, there should be no questions, comments, or applause from the audience. Number 6, if the meeting goes longer than 8 p.m., the commission may take a scheduled 10-minute break, or at any other time that we feel necessary to break, we may do so. So with that, I will open this public hearing and would ask for the applicant to make their presentation. Please come forward.
Mitch Fisher, 383 McCormick, here in Pocatello.
For the,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm waiting in here.
Casey Jones with you all.
Thank you.
City Council, thanks for having me. Do you mind if I hand you some?
That's fine. Yep.
I didn't get enough for everybody's. Thank you. So I didn't have a great time to study before I came here, so I'm kind of at the mercy of your questions. I think our presentation was pretty straightforward, and we've done a lot of these Kmart's. We've revitalized them, make them look pretty good, try to help out the community. So I'll leave that in your hands.
Are there questions?
Should I be using this?
You know, the mic is just for recording, and so we'll just try and speak loud enough.
So we've done a lot of these Kmart's. We revitalize them. We try to make them nice, make them look good, and then offer service to the public.
Very
And
good.
that's, in a nutshell, that's our purpose here.
Are there questions for the applicant?
Do you have any problems with the conditional uses,
The staff
conditions that the city has set out regarding landscaping?
Not at all.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, if we could hear from the staff, Matt? We'll try and speak up. The microphones are for recording purposes only. There's not an audio system to project the sound.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commission members. My name is Matthew Lewis. I'm Senior Planner with the city. As noted in the agenda, Holly Reading Keelman, representing Merco Real Estate Company, has submitted a conditional use permit application to allow reuse of the former Kmart building located at 3945 Pull Line Road as indoor storage. The site covers 7.86 acres plus or minus, consisting of the former Kmart store, parking, and some landscaping adjacent to Pole Line and Quinn Roads. Property has been vacant since 2014. A majority of the property will be used for self-service storage available to the public. Code section 17.03.330 allows self-service storage in commercial general districts with a conditional use permit. The proposed retail sales is a permitted use, and staff finds that the U-Haul truck and trailer sharing would be accessory to the primary self-service storage use. According to the applicant, 91,408 square feet of the building will be retrofitted into approximately 600 self-service storage units ranging in size from 25 to a maximum of 150 square feet. The remaining 3,081 square feet of the building area will be used for retail sales associated with the truck rentals. Addition to the existing building is not proposed, with the exception of incorporating architectural fenestration such as windows near the storefront and other elements such as coloring and ribbed concrete. Proposal also calls for the construction of 2 self-service storage structures entailing a total of 64 garage-type units. Notice of the public hearing was mailed to political subdivisions and all property owners within 300 foot of the external boundaries of the land being considered in order that they may provide comment of the proposed application. Notice was also published in the Idaho State Journal, and 2 signs were posted on the subject property. Staff has not received any written comments as of 5 p.m. this evening. In summary, staff finds that the proposal is compliant with all applicable standards of Municipal Code Section 17.02.130D, assuming compliance with conditions as outlined in the staff report. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Matt. Are there questions for Matt? Very good. So with that, we will now have any who would like to speak in favor of the applicant. They may come forward. I believe that there is a sign-in sheet up there. If you would just put your name on it, as well as city of residence. Any that are in favor of the application? Seeing none, any that are neutral on the application that would like to come forward? Yes, that's fine.
My name is Luke Stumney. I represent the FBI across the street at 3975 Pole Line Road. We're not in favor or opposed to this. One of the concerns we have is the access to Pole Line Road. So next to the gas station, there's an entrance that comes onto Pole Line Road, and that's also across the entrance into the FBI facility. And so there's a lot of traffic that goes in and out both directions, up and down Pole Line. And our concern is with that additional entrance across from our front entrance, cars coming in and turning, us turning out and going down, and traffic going both ways, there could be potential for head-on collisions. Just a concern we have for the city to consider.
Okay, thank you very much. Then if there are any others neutral that would like to give comment? Seeing none others, if there are any that are opposed to the application that would like to give comment? Okay, with none, we would like to give some time back to the applicant for any rebuttal. Any comments that you would like to make? Okay. Any questions that we need to bring up?
Has there been a traffic impact study done?
Matt, can you come answer another question?
Mr. Chair, Madam Commissioner. No, not in this case. There's not a reason for a traffic impact study. The use wouldn't have any greater impact than any other commercial use. As far as the comment from the FBI, we'll have our engineering department look at that and have them look at that evaluation.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, I will then close the public hearing. Is now before you is discussion. Are there comments?
I think it's a good use of the property instead of it going to waste.
It seems to have sat there for a number of years, and I think an improvement to it would certainly be welcome.
It would be something to note that when Kmart was open, the FBI has moved their entrance down lower since Kmart closed. And so there would be a lot of congestion in that area. So I would recommend that the city does a study to make sure that there's not any heavy congestion in that area.
And I think this is a really smart plan. I mean, it does a lot of infill for us. The retrofitting, I think, is great. I don't know if you guys really had a chance to look at the presentations that they provided, but they're really trying hard to work on their carbon footprint. Just, it looked like a really good plan.
Any other discussion or motions that would like to be made?
I'd like to make a motion for approval of the application from America Real Estate Company for a conditional use permit for the property located at 3945 Pole Line Road as requested, finding the application does meet the standards for approval under Chapter 17.02.130 of the Pocatello Municipal Code, with assuming the following conditions are met. That they do that. Look at that, those entrances.
Okay.
And authorize the chair to sign
And authorize the chair to sign
the
the findings.
Yes, I authorize the chair.
Okay. So there's been a motion made.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Aislinn, would you call the vote?
Moore,
Yes.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Burnt,
Yes.
Ricks,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Satterfield.
Yes. Motion carries. All right, agenda item number 4. This is a continued public hearing for a contract rezone. This time has been set aside for the commission to continue hearing comments from the public regarding a request by Grace Lutheran Church, represented by Jonathan Dinger, for a contract rezone for the property in the 1200 block of Pershing Avenue. The property is located in a residential medium-density single-family zoning district, and the request is to rezone by contract to residential high density to allow for greater density associated with a group living supervised facility. So if we could start, the public hearing has already been opened at last meeting, and now if we could hear from the applicants.
I'm Chuck Prostetta, live in Chubbuck, Idaho, with Grace Lutheran. Pastor Dinger sends his regards since I'm unable to make it tonight. Really, as the property owners, Grace Lutheran completed the application, but we'd really like to turn the time over to representatives with Big Mama's House, since the use of the property will really be with them.
Very good, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ed Snell. I live here in Pocatello, south end of town there, and it's with little tremors that I'm before you guys this morning because so much hinges on this. And anyway, I'll try to be brief and to the point. I'll be talking rapidly because I want to cover quite a few points here that I think are pertinent to the decision making. So some of the things that I want to make sure I cover tonight for you guys is that we define what we want to do, what we're not going to be doing, and address home values. That's always got to be a concern. And try to go into some details about why this site is important and even compatible to our vision.
We can't hear you at all.
One of the things that I feel like is important is that we define some things, and one of those is homeless shelter, because that seems to be the vision that so many of the neighbors have adopted. And so we wanted to get an official definition of that so that it could be clear in everybody's mind so we're talking about the same things. And if we talk about a homeless shelter, so often we think of emergency shelter or a flop house or those type of things. And the definition is actually, it's a facility with overnight sleeping accommodations. Now that's distinctive, it's overnight accommodations. And what we're talking about is a project that's designed to provide housing and appropriate supportive services. And that's a key issue in what we're talking about. And that this would allow us time to train and give counseling, whatever it takes to move these people from a state of homelessness into a state of actually being able to buy a home. And that's really one of the things on our scorecard when we take these people in. So I wanted to contrast some things here. Here's a picture of a homeless shelter on the left. The picture on the right is a picture of supportive housing in Ammon, Idaho. And this is sitting at the end of a cul-de-sac in a residential area. This is another view of the same thing. The vehicle there was the guy that runs the place, if you will. So there's very, very few vehicles. And another view of the same thing, and that's part of the crew that went up to look at this. And notice the difference, there's nobody hanging around. Another view here of that same neighborhood. And again, a shelter usually has hours of operation. You can show up like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock. And that's not the way we are going to operate this. This is where they come in and they actually sign a lease for 6 months. We figure it's going to take at least 6 months to get most of these people the services that they need to have a chance to move on into their own home. This right here is a picture of supportive housing right here in Pocatello over on North Harrison. And this picture was taken on a Saturday morning, and you'll notice that there's only 2 cars there. Nobody is loitering, nobody's hanging around. So I wanted to address real estate values real quick. And I actually talked with 3 experts here in Pocatello regarding what this project might do to the home values, because we wanted to consider those things. And so I talked to an appraiser, and he said, Ed, sorry about this, Mr. Satterfield, but he said that realtors can give their opinion, but as an appraiser, I have to deal with facts. And he says the truth of the matter is that there's nothing in Pocatello I can compare this to, so I can't help you out. I called a realtor who said, let's go over and take a look at it on the way over. He said that my first instinct is to tell you that it probably will have a negative impact, a slight negative impact. We got over there, we drove the neighborhood, he looked around at all the other uses going on, and he says, I don't think this is going to be a negative impact at all, but let me get some comparables. And he paused and he says, I don't know where I'm going to get some comparables, but I'll call you tomorrow morning. He called me the next morning and said, I can't help you. I don't have any comparables to give you. And he suggested I call another realtor. So I did, and he was really, really quick. He says, I can't help you with that because there's no comparables. And so I had mentioned to him that there's a couple of projects in Idaho Falls. And he said, hey, why don't you talk with a realtor up there? So I did. I got a hold of Kim Sion, and this is her conclusion. She gave me 31 comps, so it wasn't just a real loose thing. She really dug into it. She says, I targeted the homes in and around the area where Love Inc. has properties. It appears the values have appreciated just like the rest of Idaho Falls. I collected data as far back as 2003 to show the value appreciation. So that was one project. Another project is called Club Inc. She said about this one, this area appears to be the same as the other near Love Inc. The market trend ascended just as its surrounding areas and comparable properties in Idaho Falls / Hammond. While a transitional living area may be a factor in why or why not a buyer decides to purchase a home, it doesn't appear that the value is any less than other competing homes in the market. Homes in this area have and still are selling within our market average and percent of list price. Here's a Google picture, if you will, of the area. Just want to go real quick. There's Yellowstone Avenue, Office Max, the LDS Church. There's the property that's we're asking for the rezone to take place on. And right here is where the 2 buildings that we're proposing would fit on that lot. And over there, of course, is a commercial area. It's important to note, too, the probation and parole is right across the street from the entrance to this property. There's a public bus stop right across there on Yellowstone, very close, which would be important for these people that don't have a lot of access to vehicles. Right here across the street on McCormick are some condos, which would be a high-density use. There we have a daycare business, and over here we have a dental lab business. So my point in showing that is that this is a transitional area between commercial and residential. This is how the footprint would sit on there. And you can see that there's 5 homes that are immediately adjacent, or 6 homes immediately adjacent to that. And I wanted to point out, too, that this sets off of Pershing 130 feet, so it's almost a half a block off of Pershing. From the front door of the complex to the property line to the north is about 90 feet. And then if you add another 45 or 50 feet to the back door of most of these other properties, we're almost a half a block away from the back door to these people. We've moved the property, or I mean the building, so that they're not looking down into any of these adjacent properties as well. Now, I wanted to just show a real quick comparison here. Our project is going to have about 3,400 square feet of land per unit. The condo is about 3,200. We have about 28% green space. The condo is about 25%, and does not include any of the green space around the daycare area. So our impact on the neighborhood, our staff completed a review and conducted research through housing and urban development mapping tool. And the conclusion of that is that this area sits in a depressed area, so that as we build this out, we can apply for grants that will help for some of the yards that don't have sidewalks. If there's a corner that doesn't have adequate lighting, we can apply for grants for that, so we can actually bring some improvements to this project in the neighborhood as we go forward. That's just some pictures here of the area that HUD has defined as being in need of some of these things that we can offer. So we chose this area because it's near public transportation, schools, churches, daycare. It's really important that we're also very close to entry-level jobs. They're a block away from Yellowstone. They can go either direction, and there's lots of entry-level jobs. It's near grocery. Winco is a block or so away, so they can walk and get groceries. So we're not proposing a homeless shelter, and I just can't emphasize that enough. These future residents are more than what happened to them. We can and should provide dignity with this charitable transitional supportive housing. The density asked for does not detract from the neighborhood, and it's compatible with other housing in the neighborhood. This parcel is located at the edge of the residential neighborhood and at the edge of commercial property, making a high-density request reasonable, compatible, and good use. So if I conclude, I would probably put it this way. If you don't believe in the vision as we've outlined it, if you don't believe that the city can enforce the conditional use permit and the rezoning, then you probably wouldn't want to be in favor of this. But if you believe that in fact that we are presenting an honest presentation of the vision and the goal, and that this is a transitional parcel, then we think that this ought to be approved and moved on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for the applicant? I do have one. The housing that's in Idaho Falls, do you know how many residents they have?
Yeah. Okay, so the one that we visited, the Club Inc., sits on the end of a cul-de-sac, and there's 3 buildings. And each one of those is set up more like a dorm as opposed to apartments that we were talking about. So you walk into this big kind of family area type thing with a couple of sofas and a TV, and then down each hall to the right and left are, I believe it was 4 bedrooms? I think it was 4 bedrooms on each side with a bathroom. And so they didn't have any living except just a bedroom. That was really all that was there. So we had, in those 3 units, a total of 24 units there. And because it was set up that way, there was men in 2 of the units and women in the 3rd unit. And this was a little bit different type of a housing in that regard. And obviously, that was 1 story. We're looking at 2-story. But the thing is that in this Club Inc., they built in that they were the first ones to build in that subdivision, and other residents moved in behind them. I mean, around them. So it's accepted. You can go to other places like Boise, and you see the same thing. It is in residential areas. So we're not a flop house.
Thank you. Other questions, sir?
I had a question. You had, it says here in the application you're looking at 24 units.
Okay, so when we put this together, I guess we're advised to say put down the maximum. Our goal has been all along is to have 1 bedroom in the first phase, the first building, and in the second phase to have 2 and 3 bedroom units. And so if we did it that way, there would probably be a maximum of 6 in the other unit. So it'd be 6 and the 12, so it'd be a maximum of 18. That would be the more in line with the dream.
And how many occupants per unit?
It's going to depend. That's a great question. We were told that a place over in Boise will put a family of 6 in a studio apartment. We don't plan on being that. I guess the need would determine that. That would be the honest answer. I can't imagine putting 6 people in a studio apartment, but it's done, and I guess in an emergency you would consider that.
So in your initial application, you mentioned the Dream Center and the Palmer House, which I guess respectively are in Salt Lake City and in California.
That's right.
Have you been in contact with them? Are you just looking at the plans that they have done? How much in-depth research have you done on these 2 institutions?
Yeah. Okay, so the one in California, we talked with them, it's been a year ago, maybe a little bit more than that. And they were open to the idea of partnering with us in the sense that we could perhaps join in with their website and take advantage of all of the things that they have developed in that way. And that's it. Palmer House, we've not done anything with them except visit and get ideas. And along that same line, I should add too that when we visited the place in Idaho Falls, I asked the gentleman in charge, should we build apartments or should we do it dorm style like you're doing? And he didn't even take a breath. He said, do apartments. It's much, much better. So that's where we went.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the site selection process and why this particular site is the one you want to move forward with?
Yeah, it was one of those things where you can call it fate or whatever you want to call it, but my pastor introduced me to Pastor Dinger and said, my pastor said, hey, he's got a piece of property that I think would work good for what you guys are looking for. And so it was a simple introduction like that as we talked our way through everything and realized all of the things that were around there, a supportive seller included. It was like, yes, this makes perfect sense to us.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Now, if we could hear from the staff, Carl.
Council, is there any way to get a microphone? I cannot hear it. I don't
I'm sorry, but there's not, and this is really how we have done it for years. I apologize. Again, we'll try and speak as loud as we can. The public hearing, the purpose of the public hearing is for the commissioners to gain testimony from the public. And so we feel like we're accomplishing that, but we will try and speak as loud as possible. Thank you. Carl?
Can we say some?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Carl Anderson. I'm a senior planner here at the City of Pocatello. As noted in the agenda and detailed by the applicant, the application is to rezone by contract the property located in the 1200 block of Parisian Avenue, south of 1250 Parisian Avenue, from the existing residential medium density single family zoning to residential high density to allow for 24 individual dwelling units to be operated as a group living supervised facility. The application was submitted by Grace Lutheran Church and is represented by Jonathan Dinger as listed on the application. The application before you is specifically to allow multifamily development at a greater density than what is permitted under the existing zoning district. The property is approximately 1.3 acres more or less. It is important to note that the applicant must also obtain a conditional use permit for group living supervised, which is conditionally permitted in all residential and commercial zoning districts, which will be evaluated under a separate application and require a separate public hearing process. For the audience's benefit, tonight's hearing is to make a recommendation. The Commission will make a recommendation to City Council, who ultimately will make a decision on the contract rezone. The proposal does not fit perfectly within a use currently defined by Pocatello Municipal Code, which is how we have the process before you today. Based on the materials presented by the applicant, the proposed use is considered a multi-family dwelling development and to be operated as a group living facility as defined by Pocatello Municipal Code. The proposal is not considered transitional housing as the length of stay is proposed to provide long-term housing at a minimum of 121 days or 20 days. I should note here too that our city code definition of transitional housing differs from the definitions in the applicant's presentation, which I believe they probably obtained from HUD's website. The site is physically suitable to support the type and intensity of land uses proposed and can be served by public facilities and services. The Public Works Department has reviewed the application and determined that a traffic impact study is not required based on the TRIPS generation manual. As proposed, all buildings will comply with the height and setback requirements of the existing residential medium-density single-family zoning, so setbacks and height requirements. Per staff analysis of the criteria for review, staff concludes that the development is compatible in terms of scale, mass, coverage, and intensity with adjacent land uses. However, in regards to density, while the property abuts the commercial general zoning district to the west and a church to the south, there are no multifamily developments within a 300-foot buffer of the property. While the applicant has reduced the number of units from the initial proposal, further reduction in the number of units would increase compatibility and potential negative impacts of a multifamily development on the adjacent land uses to the north and west. All noticing requirements for the application have been met. At the date of the completion of the staff report, 5 public comments had been received and attached to the staff report in addition to a petition that has been received. Multiple phone calls have been taken by staff. To date, 19 individuals have submitted written comment, which the commission has before them either in the agenda or provided to them. All additional public comments received to date to the date of the staff report have been compiled and are before the commission. Additionally, petitions against the application have been received and are attached to the staff report. Should the commission recommend approval of the subject application, staff would recommend the conditions listed in the staff report with the additional condition that the parking requirement of the existing daycare shall be maintained and a deed restriction added to the subject property until such time that the daycare is able to accommodate the parking requirement through alternate means or is no longer in operation. And I would like to highlight, there are 13 conditions listed in the staff report. I'd like to highlight a couple for the commission. One, that upon rezone by contract, the subject property shall be zoned as residential high density for the sole use of a multifamily development to be operated as supervised group living facility upon approval of a conditional use permit as required. The applicant shall obtain approval of the required conditional use permit prior to the submittal of a building permit. The applicant must receive approval of a conditional use permit within 1 calendar year from the date of a final approval of the contract rezone application. Should the required CUP, conditional use permit, be denied, the subject property shall revert to the existing residential medium-density single-family zoning upon the expiration of the applicable appeal period. And 5, the applicant shall coordinate with the necessary City of Pocatello departments such as fire, public works and engineering, sanitation, water, and building departments prior to the submittal of the conditional use permit in order to address improvements and/or site modifications that may be required at the time of the building permit submittal. This concludes my presentation, and I will be happy to stand with you for any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Carl. Are there questions for Carl?
Yes. So whether we recommend or deny this application, it is going to the city council for their approval or their denial, no matter what happens tonight, correct?
Unless the applicant were to withdraw. Those are kind of the 3 options that would be available moving forward.
Other questions? All right, thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Very good. We will now open it up to gathering public testimony. In this section, we will start off by hearing from those who are in favor of the application. I will also state that if, as a group, there are those that would like to combine statements, then we can allot more time than the 3 minutes, but no more than 10 minutes for a group combined statement. We would also ask, again, in repeating some of these things, that we try and stay on topic and that we try not to repeat previous things that have been stated. So with that, if there are those that are in favor that would like to speak, if you'd please come forward, give your name and city of residence.
So I'm going to write my name here. City here.
You're not going to state your name or address?
No, I'm writing it here. I'm stating my name. I was told that I could write my address here for privacy concerns. So I understand that many people are here, are really worried about the specific location of Big Mama's house. And I just want to say that I think that every location here in Pocatello is going to have the same backlash. And what I really hope for this community is that next time we see this many people at a city meeting, it's not to fight over it not being in my backyard, but to fight over why can't we have this in our backyard. That's the Pocatello I envision. And I want to spend a really short period of time talking about my experience as a homeless person and why I belong in your neighborhood and why I'm not a threat to your neighborhood. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself so you see me as a person, not as a homeless person or somebody formerly homeless. I'm an economist. I have a master's degree in agricultural economics. I have a bachelor's degree in economics. I am a researcher, a cyclist, a hiker, a skier. I've traveled to crazy corners of the world backpacking by myself. I'm a sister, an aunt, a friend. I'm a dog lover, and I'm a musician. And I've taken enough statistics classes to probably make any of you in this room want to vomit. But I'm also a person who was once homeless. I struggled for housing after I had my master's degree. And when I see people in this community talking about people who are homeless, it hurts. I heard a comment when I first came in, why would you want to put people in neighborhoods where they're not welcome or they're not wanted? And I hope that I'm wanted. I spent a short time of my existence teaching math at a school for homeless youth for 15 to 17 and 21-year-olds. And they showed up to class every day. They weren't deadbeats, they weren't doing drugs, they weren't a threat to your community. Every single one of them passed the math portion of their GED after 6 months of being in my class. My biggest fear about buying a home in this community is that people will find out that I'm homeless and I won't be welcome in your neighborhood. The people will be scared of me. I'm afraid of being homeless again, in part because we don't have these transitional programs. We don't have programs like the Good Mama's House. I have 13 years of industry experience. I've ran $15 million of research projects, and I'm scared I'm the most unemployable person on the planet. I'm scared that if I fall in love and a man here finds out that I was homeless, that he'll run because of the stereotypes that we have. I just want you to know that I have a great life. I have a job, I have food in my refrigerator, I have a 401k, I get to ride my bike in some of those beautiful landscapes of the world. And the only thing that separates from me from who I was 15 years ago is luck. And I hope that when you guys see people who need a hand up, you give them too. Because the only thing that separates us is luck. And I hope you guys could look at me and see that I belong in your neighborhood. And I'm not a threat to your children.
Thank you. Others that would like to speak in favor of the application?
My name is Mike Popovich. I'm pastor of First Baptist Church. I'm on the board of Valley Mission, partnered with the Idaho Food Bank. We currently are serving on average 200 families a week. I'm also on the board of Family Services Alliance. I have crossed out several things that Ed has already said, so I'll try not to repeat. I believe the property location within walking distance to entry-level jobs and transportation is a positive here. Even though it is residential, it is bordered by commercial, most notably the parole office, where I am told by people who work nearby will occasionally see arrests and those kind of things. So there is a security issue for not only this facility but the neighborhood. I think this could be a good buffer for that. This ministry is a safety net for families who can't keep up with the utility bills, with their rent and a risk of eviction, have lost a job, are at risk of living on the street or in their car, need a helping hand to bridge the gap between living in debt and living within their budget. I would ask anyone to consider if they missed 2 paychecks, would their landlord graciously give them 6 months of free or reduced rents while they got back on their feet? I fear most people live paycheck to paycheck, and this could be a problem, and that I'm not sure there are many, if any, landlords who would do that. Some may see people on the street advertising their hard times and asking for help. What you do not see are the many who are ashamed and struggling and are losing battle to make ends meet. This statistic might shock you as it did me. Our church is located across the street from Pocatello High School. Last year, they ended the year with 70-plus students homeless. That number, District 25 wide, is 240. When you consider just these students and their families, the effort by Big Mama's House is only a beginning to provide places for people to get back on their feet and on their streets. Our community is finally on track to open a crisis center in about the next year and a half. The crisis center is a triage that determines where a person or family needs to be placed. It is anywhere from 1 to 4 days maximum. Then they need to be placed. This level of housing for this kind of situation is virtually non-existent in our community. So whether it's here or other places, you will be hearing more and more application in the coming months and years. This type of service and training ministry does not need to be relegated to the outskirts of our town or even the commercial warehouse district. I'll refer back to the mid-1990s when Road to Recovery, located on Bonneville between 2nd and 3rd, made application for a conditional use permit. When I looked at the list, it was half commercial, half residential, and everyone in that neighborhood said no. The council voted yes. Since that time to now, over 20 years, there have been 0 issues, 0 problems, no police called out. I would recommend the rezoning of this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Others that would like to speak in favor? And if there are others that would like to speak, you're free to come up and sign up so that we can save a little bit of time by doing it that way as well.
My name is Crystal Chanda, 845 West Center. I am with A&E Engineering and helped with the preliminary site plan on the project. I actually approached Big Mama when I heard about our project because it really hit home with me. In 2001, I got a divorce on the grounds of extreme cruelty, and found myself and my 2 young children almost homeless. If there had been something like this, a place for us to go live until I could get my feet on the ground, it would have been awesome. I would just hope that it's recognized that the families that would be utilizing this, and that it would be my kids that are going to this school that's 0.2 miles away, and it would be my kids knocking on your door asking if they could mow your lawn. And that it's not the bad picture that's being painted of this community, and it's something that we need, and that though would probably be a less turnaround of victims of domestic violence if they had a place to go to that they knew was safe for them.
Thank you. Others in favor?
Hello, my name is Cornelius Adrianus Hoffman III, and I live on the hill of El Rancho, really close to the proposed property. I just wanted to stand and make sure that I had a chance to let you guys know that as a person in that neighborhood, I support this and I'm in favor of this. My children go to Syringa Elementary, an elementary school within blocks of the property. I go to church at the LDS church right next door to the where the property is going to be, and I'm not very eloquent. I don't have a whole lot of important information to say, but I wanted to make sure I expressed my support for that, for the proposed location for Big Mama's house, and for the rezoning. I did want to share a quote that I found important, and I'll do that quickly. This is a quote from Elder Vaughn J. Featherstone. He's an elder of my church, of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And he says, charity also includes your attitude towards those who have not. In all my reading, I cannot recall one experience of the Savior asking a man whether he was working, whether he would have worked if he had a job, or even whether he was worthy to receive charity. He seemed to never have a concern for inappropriate begging. Consider the palsied man who was lowered through the roof, the 2 blind men calling to him during his triumphal entry to Jerusalem, or the Canaanite woman. When he fed the 5,000 and the 7,000, he did not ask how many had personal supplies or who had eaten most recently. He gave freely to all. Sometimes when we are accosted by panhandlers, excuses are often legitimate. The recipient might be going right back into a bar or a liquor store. He or she might indeed be part of a syndicate. A woman might be carrying another person's infant or child merely to evoke sympathy. Maybe the emergency for which they need financial help is fabricated. But then again, maybe not. What if we truly turn away the needy? If we give the poor and the panhandler, the beggar and the widow, deserving or undeserving, it will be accounted unto us as righteousness. Charity, in my humble opinion, would suggest that it does not make any difference. In fact, I believe that those who best exemplify charity do not think about worthiness, they simply give. And I just wanted to share that and express my support. Thank you.
Thank you. Others in favor?
Thank you, Roy Lacey. I live up on Trail Creek, Pocatello. I have a personal deal, but just tonight. There is a need for this, you know, and the pastor has a heart bigger than she is. She has seen a need in our community, and we don't have this. Just tonight, just before I walk in here, that's why I'm not cleaned up, I hadn't time to talk. I took food to a family that had, last weekend, were evicted because the apartment they were living in was sold. 7 people, they slept in their car. They're right now in a motel. They can be there until Saturday. They have no money for food. Everything is taken up, put together in a motel. These people have been coming to church. They've been living in our area over on the, I call them the tree streets, but they've been living over there. They're good neighbors, good people. All of a sudden they're out. They both are working, the mother and dad are working, very minimal wage jobs. And they have 5 little kids from, and I don't know the ages for sure, but look like 2 or 3 on up to about 15. And there is a need for this in our neighborhood. These people should be welcome into a neighborhood. They're great people. They're trying, they're working. And I think that this concept is what Pocatello needs. Pocatello is a friendly, loving community. We need to show people that it is. It's growing, and more of these things are going to be happening all the time. But the situation is real right now, and it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Others in favor?
My name is Cynthia Sandoval. I live here in Pocatello. I initially came here to do a report on what's going on with Big Mama's house. So I wasn't here to take sides, but I believe that Pocatello needs this. And I know a lot of people are against change in this town, but change will build character and you'll learn a lot about yourself. When I was young, I'm originally from Salt Lake, and my dad used to beat my mom really bad, and she left him, and we lived in a shelter for a while. And I know a lot of people need this here in this town. It really does. Pocatello is growing, like that gentleman said, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and we need to go with the flow and welcome it with open arms instead of being against it. Because if you don't go with the process and the flow of it, it just makes you ugly inside, and you don't want to be carrying that inside with you. And with this other gentleman, what he said, God's word does say that we need to help the widows and the homeless and those that don't have food. That is our job. One day we're all going to stand before God and have to give an account for what we've done. And I want God to say that, well done for what you did. And yes, I am for this.
Thank you. Others in favor?
Hi, my name is Kathleen Hoffman, and I live here in Pocatello, up on 16th Avenue. And this situation hits a little bit, it does hit home to me. I have a son who is living right now up in Idaho Falls in a sober living program, and who was a resident here in Pocatello for all of his 30 years. And he's doing pretty darn good right now, but there were periods of time when he was homeless and he was living in the suburban. He was on someone's couch or had aid for friends for a short period of time. And I agree wholeheartedly that that we as a community have more to offer than turning our backs on those who are in need. I don't feel very eloquent at it, but I am very much in support of this project and where it's has been proposed to be located. And it is close to where my grandchildren live, where they go to school and where they go to church. And I am very much in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Others in support?
I just need to take a moment and to stand and tell you that I do stand in support of Big Mama's house and her vision and her willingness to help the citizens, a lot of the citizens and members in Pocatello that are struggling. I also have a personal experience. About 4 years ago, my husband and I took a homeless 16-year-old into our home. Not into our neighborhood, but into our home. And I had people that came up to me that said, "You're crazy. She'll steal you blind. She'll do all these awful things. How could you sleep at night?" But I felt like it was something that we needed to do. And I will forever be grateful for the opportunity that we had to do that, because it opened my eyes to a whole world of suffering human beings that are in the situations. A lot of them are in the situations that they are not because of something that they've done to themselves. Sometimes it's the homes that they were born into. Sometimes it's situations they've fallen on hard times. These people deserve a chance to be able to be taught skills, to be able to live among us. What makes you or I any better than any of these other individuals, these people? We are all God's children. He loves us all equally. And I don't feel like it's my place to judge. I think it's my place to put my arm around him and say, welcome. I stand in favor.
Thank you. Others in favor? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to those who are neutral on the application. If those that are neutral would come forward, and if somebody wants to step in line behind them, they're free to sign on, and we can continue this process.
My name is Alan Colvin. I live at 965 Encino Street here in Pocatello. I say I'm neutral because I don't know exactly where I fall on this. I too was homeless for about 6 months after an accident. I lived in my van. I agree with the concept. I was a director of a drug rehab center in Portland, Oregon for a year and a half. And when we looked for a place to put our facility, we went into the communities and we picked a community that was willing and was supportive of the place that we had, because we realized that it wasn't about us where we were placing the rehab center. It was about the people that were in there, because if your community is not going to support the people that are in there, there's going to be backlash, whether people realize it or not. When people come out into the neighborhoods after the facility's built, however it's supported, we had deep pockets from the community. It was the Southern Baptists, and they had deep, deep pockets to support this. It was thousands and thousands of dollars every month. So that's a concern that I have. I like the concept. I just think the area, in the area that it is the wrong area.
Thank you.
Commissioners, my name is Kent Hobbs. I work for Pocatello School District number 25, and part of my job as the Director of Student Support Services is to deal with the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Act, identifying students who are homeless and providing service and support to those students. And I'm here today to kind of describe the homeless situation as I see it from the perspective of education. And as Pastor Popovich mentioned, we identify approximately between 220 and 250 kids every year as homeless under the federal definition, which is unstable or impermanent housing due to eviction or foreclosure on homes. And the students who typically come into a homeless situation in our school district, elementary is most often families have lost a home due to eviction or foreclosure, and are required to live with someone else, a neighbor, a friend, a family member, somebody that they provides housing for them. And then we have similar situations with middle school and high school kids, but much more so we see also kids who are considered unaccompanied youth, kids who've left their home, their families, no longer live with a guardian or a parent, and so they're on their own, either couch surfing between friends and families, or in some cases have set up their own housing of some kind, or simply live on the street. So we do have what I would consider a considerable problem of homelessness with kids in our community. And we have 7 community resource workers in our elementary schools. We have 2 community resource workers, social workers who work in our secondary schools. They provide all sorts of support. We're required to set aside a certain amount of money each year from our Title I budget to support these kids, to buy clothing so they come to school, to provide with supplies to come to school, to supply anything that would prevent them from accessing education. For older kids, I mean, I bought rented prom dresses and tuxedos so kids could go to prom. We don't buy the ticket because that's considered a choice, but once they have the ticket, it's considered preventative if they don't have the appropriate clothing. So we do provide, a variety of things. We provide household goods and household items if they need that. When I started this job 9 years ago, we identified 63 kids. I think that first year I was in this job, and it's only increased over the years. It seems to have stabilized within that 220 to 240 kids throughout the community. As the previous speaker mentioned, there is a significant need for homeless support in the community, and there is a significant need for that to be accessible. One of the things that is offered to children is to return to their school of origin. So throughout the district, we provide transportation from a myriad of places, from one end of the district to the other end of the district, so that kids can remain in a stable schooling situation. So, we do need to support kids in our community in one way or another, families in our community, so that they can get an appropriate education. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Others that are neutral.
I'm Norman Reese. I live at 231 Merle Street here in Pocatello. The area that we're talking about tonight is surrounded by single-unit family dwellings. They're not HUD units, as has been reported in the paper, but most of them are in the $150 to $250 range. And those who live on McCormick, and also those who live on Pershing or Willard, this project, if it goes forward, will destroy any privacy that they have. Now, as was mentioned just a few minutes ago, about 300 yards from this project is a large elementary school, Syringa School. And we have hundreds and hundreds of kids, preschool to 5th grade, 4 to 12 years of age, walking these streets every day as long as school is in session. And these are our most vulnerable citizens. Now, I'm just an old, retired, dumb nuclear physicist. I have a hard time understanding things. But one thing I do understand is the concept of increased risk. And this is what's going to happen if we allow this project to continue to be built in our neighborhood. Now, one incident would be one too many. And the fact that security guards are going to be employed, or was going to be employed, supports the theory or the reality of increased risk. And this is a risk that we're not willing to accept. Many of us too are veterans. We've served our country for many years. And along with our neighbors, we've chosen to buy here, where we could live in a quiet, nice neighborhood, where we can see our children go to school, run and play in the daytime and at night with little fear of unwanted incidents. And many of us too have worked for decades and have chosen to stay here and retire in this neighborhood. So I want to be clear now, very crystal clear, that we fully support the concept of Big Mama's dream. Let me say that again. We support the concept of Big Mama's dream. But the thing that we do not support is it being built in a residential neighborhood. This dream should not be allowed to trump our dream of living in this nice, good neighborhood where we can watch our children run and play and go to school, to walk to school with little anxiety for their safety. And so we, in the strongest terms that we can think of, we request that you deny this application.
Thank you. Others that are neutral on the application that would like to speak? Was that neutral?
My name is Romelia. I live on 9th Street. I'm not a nuclear physicist, and I'm...
But you can be.
I could be, probably take a little while. But I've met Big Mama, and I support it. I support this project, but what I'm neutral about is I really admire her because look at all these people that are all mad. She's brave for something good, because it is needed. There's a lot of people in Pocatello that do not have anything, and they struggle. And then we have us. We're sitting here in our homes with our food, with our cars, with our jobs. There's people that don't have anything, and sometimes we take this for granted. I'm no better than a person that is homeless, but I have a job, and I try not to take that for granted. But I admire her. She's trying to make a change for the better. And if you don't want it in the neighborhood, help her find a place to put it.
Okay. If you'll please address the commission
Okay.
here.
Well, she needs help. She tried to put one here. Nobody wanted it there. She wanted another one. Nobody wanted it there. Well, help her. We got homeless people all over. And maybe it doesn't affect you, but indirectly it does affect everybody in this room. Excuse me, I gotta turn my head this way. But anyway, I'm neutral about the opposition to it because I'm afraid for her. But she's a brave lady, and I love her. I just met her. Thank you.
Thank you. Others that are neutral, please.
I'm neutral for many reasons. First, I'm going to be moving soon, so
Make sure you sign in to the.
I will also.
Okay, excellent. Yep.
And I totally support this. I mean, it's a great idea. I think there's a huge need for, anything that would help homeless people to succeed. I mean, I work at a developmental disability agency, so I do help people succeed in life. We teach them life skills. I mean, this would be perfect for people that are looking for employment, for housing opportunities. But the location is that's the biggest thing. Next to a daycare, I mean, you're taking up some of the daycare property. There's a lot of parking spaces there. Just looking at this little map, I mean, is there going to be an increase in traffic area? With the traffic, is there going to be increased traffic next to an elementary school, but more importantly, a daycare? And my children have went to that daycare, and the daycare also helps people that are in need. So I mean, there's already a place there that helps people in need. Maybe perhaps going into a place that's being developed already or would be a better option, or just somewhere not next to a daycare and a school. But I think the idea is wonderful. I'd support it, just not the location.
Okay, thank you. Others that are neutral that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we will go to those opposed. If you would come forward, and if we can just kind of pass the thing back as we go to save time, it would be appreciated. Okay, let's maintain some quiet. Thank you.
I am reading my own words, if that's okay. Purpose for the zoning is to promote the orderly development and maintenance of livable, peaceable, and attractive neighborhoods where residents can live their lives with a minimum of disturbances and disruptions. Residential neighborhoods are to be developed to be pedestrian friendly. Nothing should interfere unreasonable with the enjoyment of normal home activities. Our zoning is to encourage residential development and non-residential development of schools, churches, parks, and daycare centers that are compatible with the neighborhood. Please do not change the zoning. It will fundamentally change the integrity of our neighborhood. This request is in direct contradiction to our zoning that is already in place. It will prevent. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. So, you have an obligation to prevent anyone or anything that would jeopardize the livability and peacefulness where the residents live their lives with a minimum of disturbances. There are plenty of places that are already zoned for their needs that would not infringe on the veracity of the neighborhood. I also feel like I'm neutral to this. I'm in favor of the project, just not in a residential neighborhood. There are plenty of places that are already zoned. We are zoned medium residential, single family that includes up to 2 units. I know it was talked about high density properties. Those are single family resident townhomes. They're not they're not multi-family properties. We are designed to promote the pedestrian travel of, they're designed to promote pedestrian travel to a variety of neighborhood services within close proximity. Multifamily dwelling units are not permitted. Cramming this many people into a small area would disrupt our neighborhood and would not be safe. As was just pointed out to me, it only takes 1 second to take 1 kid. For some unknown reason, if you approve your request, I ask that you make 3 stipulations. no more than 24 units in 2 buildings, the height to not exceed 35 feet, and if the zoning doesn't go through, or if the conditional use does not get approved, that the zoning goes back. This will affect many lives. 75 children attend the growing place and 15 people are employed there. There are several, they serve as a local community gathering place. To disrupt this would be a great disservice to our community and the many lives that would be displaced. We have zoning codes for a reason. Please stick with the codes you already have in place. Our dream, someone's dream is not more important than everyone else's dreams. Thank you.
And even though you signed in, it's always helpful for us if you give us a name.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you.
My name is Gary Barella. I live at 954 Wayne Avenue. And I'd like to start out with a clarification question. This, in my view, the definition of what this is going to be has changed multiple times. The last I had heard, this is going to be a transitional home for men who have been recently released from prison to transition into the real world. Is this what it is? Do you know?
That is a question we will redirect back to the applicant at the end.
Okay, I appreciate that. That being said, and I would like to mention that I have a daughter, a 2-year-old daughter who attends that daycare. I don't stand up here in hatred. I'm not unchristian, but I really do want to protect my daughter, and I will. This sister here that just opened the meeting for us, I have no problem backing that story and helping her. She's welcome at my dinner table anytime. But if you're going to bring people who have made poor choices in the past and are transitioning into hopefully making better choices, I don't want that in my neighborhood. I have a brother who was just recently released from federal prison in Washington State and is going through systems like this right now. None of them are in residential neighborhoods. They are in areas that are high density zoned, and they're closer to places that they can help them and get on track. And he's going to Narcotics Anonymous and other things that he's trying to straighten his life out. I need that in my family. But I also would never let my brother be in my home or my backyard by himself with my children. I wouldn't, because my brother has proven to me that he's made wrong choices. I would like to end by saying, just giving a suggestion of a place. It was said, if you don't like it, help her. I don't know what the zoning on this is or anything, but the Safe Haven building that is out on South 5th Avenue that is empty, that's close to ISU, it's close to bus stops. There's a lot of programs at ISU and the public health up there that's on the hill there. It's all close to there. That would be a suggestion that I would make. And that building's there. All you have to do is make it into the apartments that you need. Big Mama, you have a dream that I greatly would support. I just need to protect my children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Udell Hedstrom, I'm right next door, one with the for sale sign. And I had it for sale before this started. And I offered it to the Reverend if he'd come back, but nobody came back to me. I have stage 4 cancer and I'm dying, but I don't want my wife stuck with something she can't get rid of. It's been for sale for, my Jim Grady was my brother-in-law. He was passing away, and I just didn't want to do anything with it. I put it in with another real estate, and I stopped and talked to her today. And every time they come, that's right next to Big Mama's house, end of conversation. This is an admirable thing they're doing, but I think it's in the wrong location, personally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mitch Fisher, 383 McCormick. I guess I just want to start off by I don't think there's anybody in here that's not against this program. We love the idea. It's just in the wrong place. The same issues that you had over at the Bonneville District are the same that we have here. The problem is, this has changed so many times, several times in the last few weeks. And these codes and covenants were put in effect when these neighborhoods were built to protect us against this haphazardly planning like this that comes in and change and doesn't know what's going on. One day it's a security guard. We're all worried. We ask questions. The next day it's no security guard. So we're really concerned with that. It brings a lot of fear to people. As long as these codes are in effect, these 1,700 codes were put there to protect us for this. And we're hoping you guys can see that and you'll follow this, because we moved into these neighborhoods and a lot of us were already there since the early 50s, and it hasn't changed, and it's become a great place to live. And we don't want that change at all. It's not Big Mama. We don't want a rezoning change at all. We don't care if it's a strip mall or a parking lot or whatever. We don't want it. We have the density that the city has set forward for us. We have everything that's contained in that. We have our residential, we have our multi-buildings, we have everything that's in that code for our zone. And there's just no reason to interject this into a neighborhood when there is already correctly zoned properties available right now. It seems silly to me to spend $1 million+ to help 24 people or 24 units when that money could be really spread out. But that's not my concern. My concern here now is this rezoning, and I just don't believe it needs to be in a neighborhood and injected to us. We've all lived here. We've put money into our homes, and we hope that we can pull that money out for our retirements in the future. And that's what I think everybody hopes to do with their homes. But walking into a hard-working neighborhood like this, where we all work hard, and pulling that money just out from underneath us is not fair for one person to have their dream fulfilled with all of us dropping like that. We're not wanting to give our money to a charity on a forced push like that. We don't mind giving it to. We love her program. We've all said that, and I can tell you right now that if she finds a correctly zoned place for this, it will flourish big time, because I'll tell you, we do need this in Pocatello, and you guys all know that. So that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kaylin Burton, and I live on Merle Street. And I was wondering, Mr. Satterfield, if I could actually quote a couple of quotes from the Idaho State Journal. Cool? Okay. Thanks. Okay. I noticed as people were coming up to speak in favor, as well as those that were neutral, except for the nuclear physicist, that nobody lived quite right around the concentrated area that's in question. And do you mind if I ask everybody to raise their hands that is here today to show who lives right around that impacted area? Is that cool?
Information.
Can you get a distance? So like Del Rancho County.
Don't overthink it. Okay, so there's a lot of people here that are here supporting, as a neighborhood, and try to keep our neighborhood in the zoning and everything like we have, bought into our homes for. We heard in the presentation that was made that this was not a homeless shelter, but everyone began speaking in favor, has spoken in terms of a homeless shelter, which is not what it is. I'm going to quote then from the Idaho State Journal. It was October 3rd of this year. Lance Colbert, community advocate coordinator for Big Mama's House, said the home would serve the whole community without discrimination, including ex-convicts. However, he said, would-be residents will be carefully screened and nobody convicted of a sex offense will be eligible. I went online to look up some statistics of recidivism rate from the Federal Bureau of Justice. And people, that have been in prison, 63% have been arrested in 3 years, 79% are arrested in 6 years, and 83% are re-arrested in 9 years. So that rate is a pretty scary, and especially from the Federal Bureau of Justice. Those are the things that we are scared of. Just to kind of underscore, and I don't think we can underscore it too much, is the city code 17.01.100, which clearly lays out what our neighborhood and what can come in and what has to stay out. Let's see, Councilman Moore, I think it was just this last spring, the Bonneville neighborhood, he said this, and again, Idaho State Journal, to me, it strictly comes down to a zoning issue, and I want to make sure that I treat every neighborhood the same. Whether it's my neighborhood, the Bonneville neighborhood, or the Satterfield neighborhood, said Councilman Gary Moore, who initiated the motion to approve the appeal. Based on my interpretation of the codes and the ordinances, I feel like this isn't permitted in a residential neighborhood. So we obviously have precedents of the same thing that is happening now to our neighborhood. So I'd like for you guys to consider that when you're making your decision. We are not, as been stated, so much against what Big Mom is trying to do. We would all get so behind her. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'm Amanda Rumrell, and I just actually want to take probably 30 seconds because there's a lot of people, and I just want to make it quick. So we bought our first house in a high-density area, zone area. It was uncomfortable. We had so much traffic flowing from our front yard that my kids could not comfortably play in the front yard or even in the backyard because there were people who slept in our bushes at night. Going back to the school district 25 homeless, 8 months ago we were titled homeless because we lived with family while we were transitioning into our new home. So yes, there is a lot of homeless children, and I think that there is need for help, but some of that is because there's certain titles that have to be given to be homeless. We just bought our house, and we are in this area where it's going to be built right across the street from us. We bought this house with realtors telling us, several realtors that we had help us, telling us it's a quiet neighborhood. This neighborhood's great. Your kids will be able to play in the front yard. Since we've lived here, my kids have been able to do that. My concern is, well, if this comes in, if anything comes in zoning-wise, we're going to have high density. My kids aren't going to be comfortable in the front yard. I'm not going to be able to have my kids ride their bikes. I'm not going to be able to be comfortable knowing that they're in the front yard, and if whoever's walking by or driving by, you know what I mean? So I'm just asking you to think about this really hard because I finally got what we needed for comfortability for my family, and I don't want that taken away. I do love what her plan and what she wants, just not in a residential area, please.
Thank you. My name's Dallin Lund. I live at the top of Middlebrook. I wrote everything down so I wouldn't forget stuff. First off, I want to start off by saying that in no way do I want my comments to discredit the work that Big Mom is doing. What I want to speak about is a section in the letter sent out to the surrounding neighbors. In the letter, they compared Big Mama's house to a housing program in Salt Lake City called Palmer Court by the Road Home Organization. I grew up and lived in Salt Lake Valley. I graduated from Weber State University, and after that got a job with Gold Cross Ambulance as an EMT in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City Fire Department does not have ambulances and therefore pays Gold Cross to supply ambulances for them when they run the calls. I only worked for Gold Cross Ambulance for about 4 months before moving, but in that short time, we were called to Palmer Court so often and so many times while on shift that when I read the name of the housing program being referenced, I knew the exact address of it, 999 South Main Street, Salt Lake City, Utah. The multiple calls that we received at Palmer Court consisted mostly of drug overdose, domestic violence, and infection. Those were never fun calls because of the condition of the home and residents. The home smells, is visually dirty, and you never want to touch anything because it's just gross. Our ambulances were constantly having to be cleaned after transport for bed bugs. I understand the importance of this housing and of how many people it helps, but from my experience, this type of housing is not a clean and safe environment to bring to a residential area. The big difference where Palmer Court was placed is that rezoning was not needed. You don't see children running around or families going for a walk. They chose not to put Palmer Court in a residential area. I reside on Meadowbrook, like I said, which is about a 5-minute walk to this area. My wife takes frequent walks with our 2 small children around our neighborhood. From her experience of also growing up in the Salt Lake Valley, it immediately brought stress to her, hearing that this housing unit had a possibility of being put in our neighborhood. The change of environment that it would bring to the neighborhood hits too close to home from the experience we've had in the Salt Lake Valley. I have lived here for just over a year, And about 3 weeks ago, I found a used hypodermic needle in my gutter. This new housing would only increase the chances of my children finding something like that playing in the yard due to the increase in foot traffic coming through our area. I believe that there are better areas in which this housing could reside, just not in a residential community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Ann Wilkes. I'm a resident of Pocatello. I have a really unique story in that I was born and raised here. I have worked in California. I've spent the last almost 21 years in Portland, Oregon as a social worker for the state of Oregon in child welfare. I have worked with many transitional housings as well as shelters. I purchased property in this neighborhood for all the same reasons that they said is a great neighborhood for transitional housing. I've lived and I've worked with transitional housing people, and it does change neighborhoods. To the point that as soon as I heard Big Mama's house is going to go in there, my first instinct was, I'm selling my house, or I'm going to make it apartments so that I don't have to be in that neighborhood. Because what happens in those neighborhoods is families don't let kids out, they don't get a childhood. And that is why we moved into this neighborhood, was for families to have a childhood. And you're gonna, if it's approved, you will take that childhood away from our next generation. They already go to school, and if you ask anybody, up in Highland, they just had a lockdown. These kids are having to deal with school lockdowns, with drugs, with cyberbullying, things that we've never had to deal with. And you have the right and obligation to protect those children going to the schools. This is a great project, and there have been wonderful transition places in Portland that I work with. There were some really crummy ones. But as soon as they put them in a neighborhood, you saw the neighborhood decline, you saw people get out of the neighborhood, and you saw people afraid to be out in the community. And that is not what I returned to Pocatello. I just returned 2 months ago. I've owned the home for 5 years, but I just returned 2 months ago. Part of the reason I returned was because Portland has a massive problem with homelessness. It is so massive that they don't have solutions for it. And I am very proud that she's trying to bring forward a solution, because Pocatello has it too. We have a drug problem here. We have homeless here. We have a lot of things here. And I'm very passionate about helping people, else I wouldn't have stayed in child welfare for almost 3 decades. But to rezone would be a horrible mistake for the children that live there and the families that live there. This project needs to be in a place where it's already zoned and a community that wants it. You have a plethora of community people saying, we don't want it in our neighborhood. It only makes relationships worse. I would love to help her find a place where the community comes together. And there are lots of different ways of doing a transitional housing. The most experienced one was when they had seniors and they had families and they had child welfare families and they had homeless all in the same community working with the same goal with less money. And they had free housing. So I just would really hope that you would look at, there are many other ways of solving this problem than putting this in our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Ross Arnson. I live on Pearl Street. I'm a blue-collar boy. I work with my hands. I believe in ambition, determination, drive, hard work. And we live in a society nowadays where people are living better on the system than they are going out and getting a job. And it doesn't matter. There's a lot of places I go where I see now hiring, and those lines have been up for a long time. And there's a lot of farmers out there having to go down south across the border to get boys to come up here and do a lot of that work too. So we got a problem in America, and that's the work ethic is being affected. by a system, the system. God helps those who help themselves, and to come up here and play the sob story about how we're supposed to help the weak. Yes, we are, but there's also a different tone in the scriptures about working hard, and if you don't work, poverty is going to strike you. And that's, a lot of people make bad decisions, and sometimes you got to fall. Guys like Job didn't have a system in place to help him get back up on his feet, but he did because he trusted God and he was persistent. And he was a hard worker and he didn't lose heart. So that's another topic. But anyways, the thing that concerns me is Idaho Code, Title 54, Chapter 7 says that there's got to be a pharmacist on site. And you got one of the pharmacists here, as the heads to try to establish this deal. So what kind of ties does he have? That's my question to that. And how's he going to benefit off of that? I'm just saying, it smells some corruption there. So that's all I got to say. I don't agree with it. I agree with everybody else here. I can go through the statistics and all the research on the negative ill effects on the communities that it has. I ain't gonna waste your time. I think the biggest concern I have is just the pharmacists, that they have to provide some kind of drug care to these people, and who's going to be in charge of that. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to pause for 1 second and ask the commissioners, do we want to take a break? Do we want to keep going? Any thoughts for now? I'm okay to keep going. Okay, we'll continue. Thank you. Okay, sorry.
My name's Terry Burton. I live at 232 Merle Street. You're probably thinking, oh, we just heard that not very long ago from this lovely young lady over here. Well, that's my wife, and we've lived in our home for 25 years. And, we've heard a lot of comments tonight. We've heard some good ones. We've heard passion. We've heard a lot of feeling in things. We've even heard the word angry. What I can tell you about the people that are against this proposal is we're not angry. We're passionately controlled. We are aware of what we're doing and the reasons why we're doing it. We've heard about Heavenly Father. We've heard about religious leaders. We've heard about nuclear physicists. We've heard about all kinds of people. Well, we're all Heavenly Father's children. And He gave us all two things. He gave us a brain, and He gave us choice. And unfortunately, life always throws curveballs. So sometimes things happen that we can't control. But as a parent, what my obligation is to do what I can control. And that's to do the very best that I can for my family, my community, and my country. And if you look at our country today, you see a lot of emotion. You see a lot of people that want to do away with the law, replace things because they don't agree with it. Well, the bottom line is we have to do what's right. We don't always have to be right, but we have to do what's right. And all we're speaking as is the residents of this area. For some of us, I've been there 25 years. I know people have been there for 60 years. We're just trying to protect that which has been set up and established under the law, under precedent, and we're all still there. The applicants brought up a lot of information. Unfortunately, the hearsay that was brought up cannot be supported by anyone that gave the testimony to Mr. Snell. That's hearsay in a court of law. What we're talking about, the residents, that's fact. We live there. We have lived there for years, and we want our children to live there. Do we support Sister Thomas? Absolutely. But we don't support it at the peril of our own obligations to our family. So I wish her and her proponents success, but I don't wish them success at our failure. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with all present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, with that, and I apologize, we are going to take a short 5-minute break at this point. And so if you just kind of remember where you're at, you're free to just kind of stay where you're at. If you want to stand up, stretch out a little bit, we will reconvene in 5 minutes. Making this run so smoothly. I really appreciate everybody, and I think that it's gone very smoothly thus far, and so we will continue with that. So, all right, it's yours.
My name is Stephanie Herder. I live at 1112 Meadowbrook. And I do want to start by saying that my husband and I, we support Big Mama's House. I do believe that Pocatello desperately needs something like this to help out our homeless, to get them back up on their feet, excuse me. However, I do not support it in our neighborhood. Back in 2000, I was living in Louisiana. My ex-husband tried to kill me and my kids in our sleep. We were fortunate enough to be able to get woke up and get out of the house. I fled to Idaho. Once the trial was over, I moved back to Louisiana to my family. I received a double bachelor's degree in criminal justice and medical legal death investigation. Fast forward to 2005, August of 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit. We lost our home. My family's lost their homes. We were put into transitional housing. We were promised it was going to be safe for us, because everyone there had to go through a screening process. No felons, no sexual predators, none of that. However, 3 people that we knew were brutally raped on the property. We left there, and after we were promised we were going to be safe, me and my children were going to be safe at night, we could lay our heads down, and then this happened. After that happened, I moved. I stayed in Louisiana for a while, but I always remembered in the back of my head how wonderful Idaho was. I was tired of all the gangs and the violence in Louisiana, so I decided I'm going to move my children to Idaho, give them a better way of life, to where they're safe, they can enjoy beautiful scenery and everything. We move into the area where this is going. I love all my neighbors. I know that if my husband is out of town, that I can go to any of my neighbors' house for help. I know my youngest daughter and my grandbaby can play out in the front yard, and I don't have to worry about anything. Back in August of 2015, my daughter was in a bad relationship. She, on her own choice, decided to become homeless. I would have loved there to have been something there for her so that at night I wasn't crying myself to sleep every night wondering, is she safe? Is she hungry? Is she cold? You know, is he hurting her? Because he beat on her all the time. But I also knew in the back of my head, I kept remembering this transitional housing where everybody was going to be screened. Everybody would be safe. There would not be any violent crimes. And then I thought, no, I don't want her to go to a place like that. I just want her to be safe. I couldn't say that that was going to be a safe place for her. Once again, I support Big Mama's House, but because we need something. But nobody can guarantee us that somebody's not going to slip through the cracks. Nobody can guarantee us that when my daughter goes down to catch the bus, that person that slipped through the cracks, that passed all of the screenings and everything won't do something. I'm asking that you guys don't rezone this. I'm begging you, please don't rezone this. We need to put it in a place that is safe for both parties, and this is not it.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Jackie. I won't say my last name, but I live on Meadowbrook. And if you've ever gone from Alameda to Highline, I always confuse Highline and Pauline, you know that Meadowbrook is a really great segue to get through to those. So you avoid the Jefferson, Alameda intersection. And, you know, having this rezoned to high density means more traffic, more people coming through, more people driving down my street that's already this big. And there's sidewalk on one side, but not the other side. So kids are always on one side where cars are actually parked on the sidewalk because they need the space. So my question that I would bring up to you guys as the council, to the city, is if this is approved for rezoning for high density, if this comes through for anything, whether it be Big Mama's house, a mall, gosh, I don't know. What is the city willing to do for that neighborhood, my neighborhood, for the safety of my kids? I already want speed bumps in that area because it's ridiculous. People speed down there. I scream at people going, my guess is about 35, and I get flipped off. I get cigarette butts thrown at me. I get called nasty names, none of which I'm going to say because I try not to swear in public. But my fear is what any type of rezoning, again, whether it be for Big Mamas, is going to do to this neighborhood. Now, I've been homeless. I'm 30 years old. I'm a college graduate. I went from rock bottom to where I am now, and I am darn proud of it. I am all for the cause that this woman has. She has a big heart and a huge dream, and it is beautiful. I'm not saying it's a terrible thing. I'm not saying what she's doing is dumb in any way, shape, or form. But again, like all my neighbors have said before me, and I apologize to repeat them, residential is not the place for it. I understand that these people, whether they be people out of prison or people who have gotten down on their luck, where they've come from, they need a place that they can feel safe, they can feel wanted, that they have the opportunity to grow. Why this place? Why this plot of land for only 24 units? Why not somewhere that has more room for this woman's big dream? We've been told, why aren't you trying to help this woman find somewhere bigger? We have. My understanding is we have. We've given her multiple areas that are high density zone. That's, here you go. She wants residential. Why? Why does it have to be residential? Why does she want her dream to only be this big when her dream is this big and can do so much more than what she thinks it can? It does not make sense to me. I don't have facts to really back up my thinking. I don't have, quotes that I can spill. I'm not a huge religious person, so I don't have that coming off of me. I don't understand why this woman's dream, she only wants that when she could have this.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Alan Sluter. I live on 1243 Willard. I'm the one on the northeast corner right there. I have lived across the street there when I was growing up, from when I was 4 till I was about 22 with my parents, going through college and not going through college. I moved to Orlando for 3 years, and then when I came back, I bought a house in the same neighborhood that I was in. Because why? It's an awesome neighborhood. It's quiet. There's no through streets there other than Pearl. I mean, the hardest traffic is in the morning and afternoons to school and Sunday to church. Other than that, it's so quiet. My kid, my wife, we just got married about a year ago. One argument I finally won, we took this house instead of her house. She lives on Willard too. It's just on the other side of Pine. Alley access. You guys all know what it's like. You get garbage in the back of your yards that you never put garbage out there, but somehow there's garbage there. Well, I won. We got a quiet neighborhood. She's like, I really enjoy this house. About 3 weeks after I won this argument and we moved in and everything's good, we get a notice in the mail. We're going to rezone this area. Well, I just got us over here into this nice, quiet neighborhood that I grew up in. My grandpa's in that neighborhood. There's all these people that I've known since I was little. There's some that have lived there that I haven't known since I was little because it's so quiet. Nobody bothers each other unless you need something. It is that good of a neighborhood. And this lovely lady's vision is awesome. Let's do it. Let's get her done. Let's just put it in this place that's actually zoned for this. It's actually meant for this type of stuff. As was brought up in the presentation, the things that they did were the start of that cul-de-sac. These people moved in knowing that that was there. We're there first. You're coming in. You're going to, whether or not you admit it or not, my values are going down. I put in over $20,000 in a remodel. We've knocked out walls, we've done bathrooms, kitchens, it looks great. Our value's gone up, and that's all gonna be wiped away because somebody else's dream is bigger than mine. I don't think that's right. I don't think anybody else thinks it's right. And a lot of us would donate and probably even help build the place if it was put into a spot that was actually meant for this type of structure. Please let her have it. Just please let her have it in the right, appropriate areas. Not where it's actually behind a daycare, by a baseball field that I've hit home runs into. I know several other people have. I probably even chipped into there because it's about 100 yards long. So, I mean, it's a great neighborhood. Let's just keep it that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly Hopwood. I live on the 1200 block of Willard. When I first heard about this, I really wanted to understand what they were proposing. So I've spent a lot of time taking a look at her housing operations manual, speaking with Big Mama and Ed Snell, having my questions brought forward to them. And I feel like there's some points in their plan that are not ready for production that I think you need to be aware of. The manual that they've sent to you in their application states that they're going to have 2 security personnel. Now they've changed it to no security personnel. I'm concerned because why should they be able to make such a drastic change that goes against the paperwork that they've been presented to you already, that's already in the process of being approved? There's no mention of drug testing these residents after the initial intake. They said that they will drug test them and search their belongings at the initial intake, and after that they come and go to work, other things, and there will be no repeat of these according to the manual. They have been cited several differing plans for the existing building. Keeping the daycare there, having their own daycare, having a counseling center. They're just aiming at a moving target. And I really dislike how they can change so quickly, and the paperwork doesn't really seem to be stopping them. In the manual, there's extensive detail about domestic violence cases, 13 pages of it. When I interviewed Ed Snell and Big Mama, they said they won't be taking domestic violence cases directly from an abuser, but that is not what their manual states. This project is referring to these units as long-term for 120 days. That's their big selling point. That's why it's different than a transitional housing. But in the manual, it states that a person may be asked to leave, or they may leave on their own accord at any time. So we have no guarantee that these leases will be fulfilled. This project has not been transparent about who they will approve to live in this building and who they will deny. They either don't know what their application process will be, or they know it will be minimal, and either answer is unacceptable. This project has tried to convince me to support their location and to support them, and I cannot. They have been unwilling to answer all of my questions, contradicted their manual, as well as changed their story several times. And they've stated that any illegal activity not on the grounds is not their concern. I cannot support this terrible choice of location. I feel very strongly that this operation is not ready for production, and that they need to address these issues before they buy, build, and open in an appropriately zoned area. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Albert Gaius. I live at 280 McCormick Street, right across the street from this property. And I moved here 40 years ago to accept a job with Idaho Public Broadcasting, Channel 10. And because of that, I was selected by Mayor Angstad to be on the Pocatello Chubby Cable TV Commission. I was president, like you are, president of this organization. I know what it's like to serve on a community board, because I was president of the Pocatello Chubby Cable TV Commission years ago. And also I worked with Norm out of the INL. I've lived on McCormick Street since 1985. I moved there, and it was a nice townhouse complex. I was selected to be the president of the Townhouse Association, so I know what that's like. And over the years, even though we don't have regular meetings anymore, I still have to enforce things. Like we've had problems with people that are living at 320 McCormick, just down the street from where I live. We've had people in that place that are druggies. We've had multiple families living at the time. The city couldn't even enforce the problems there. That I called the police different times. They had people running the place down. They would not take care of their place. The place is terrible. If you look at 320 McCormick Street right now, it is terrible. 320 McCormick Street is a bad address in our whole neighborhood, and I'm ashamed to say that. And the city wouldn't even do anything about fixing it up. There's so many violations with that thing too. And then, with all due respect, your numbers are somewhat inflated about the sizes of our townhouses. We have townhouses, not condos, townhouses. And then Blazing Grace Church here in Pocatello wanted to have a prison town. They wanted to rehabilitate people coming out of prison. You know, the ladies' prison up there in town, or maybe other prisons around Idaho. Well, that all fell flat. And my wife and I were dead set against having prison town right across the street from us. Then also, you know, some of our neighbors in my townhouse complex of 12 units, 3 buildings on McCormick Street, they want to retire, and they're frustrated about losing $40,000 of the value of their home. And then what are they going to do? What are they going to do with $40,000? One woman wants to retire and move to Texas, but if she loses $40,000, she won't be able to. She'll have to work until she's dead with her cancer. And then I just think that this is just so bad. It's a bad having a whole neighborhood, and I walk the whole area all over the time. I walk all over this town. I've even walked from where I live clear downtown to the city library. I like walking. I walk all over Pocatello and Chubby. And I just see that Big Mama's house does not belong in our neighborhood, which is, you know, precinct 17 as far as the Bannock County elections go. I just think it's bad. And as being president of our homeowners association, and also being president of the Pocatello Chubby Cable TV Commission years ago, I had to make difficult decisions. I was elected because of my experience in television and radio over the years. But I plead that you turn this thing down. We do not want it in our neighborhood. Maybe somewhere else, but not in our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Hey, my name's Courtney. I grew up over on Merle Street for 20 years. I live over on South Hayes now, but I think my parents' fridge thinks I still live on Merle Street, so I count it. I think her mission's a great idea. You can see the compassion in this woman's eyes. You can tell that she just cares, but I agree too. I think it's just not a good location. I don't know if it's because I'm going to have a baby in March, my first one, or if it's because I grew up there and have so many memories of riding my bike and going and knocking on the neighbor's door and getting all my friends. But I'm just worried that my child, when he comes over to visit Grandma and Grandpa, won't have the same things that I was able to do. You know, so corny, but I'm totally going to quote it. There's this movie where he says, "I trust everyone. It's the devil inside them I don't trust." You know, as a community, we've gotten that way. Look at how our schools are. You have to ring a buzzer just to get in. We just don't know what people's true intentions are anymore. And I live very close to people who actually have drug addictions, things like that. And no matter how much they say that they want to change or they've been away from it, that stupid drug keeps pulling them back, and they do things that they would normally not do. I myself have suffered with an addiction, not with like drugs or anything, but you know, it comes back and it's like, I don't care what they do, or I don't care if I'm gonna hurt somebody else, I'm gonna do it. So I think if we have it in a residential area where there's kids out on their bikes and somebody just decides, you know, to get on those drugs again and they've stayed clean, they could kill someone. My Aunt Stacy was killed on a motorcycle by somebody who was a drug addict over on Garrett Street. And I just see things like that happening. And I don't want my little son to be out seeing grandma and grandpa and, you know, have somebody come up and steal him or anything like that. It's just, we live in a day and age where we don't know people's true intentions anymore, and I think it would just be a better spot somewhere else. Again, I think she's a wonderful, wonderful woman. I myself would help. My husband's in the Marine Corps and they do Toys for Tots, and he even talked to some of his friends in his company and they would come down and help. I mean, there's so many people who see the need for it, but we think it's just not the right location. With that, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Brad Bassett. I live on the corner of Griffith and Pershing. I've been there for 10 plus years to the chagrin of many of my neighbors. And basically, I think I want to get down to, I'm more of a facts person. I want to get down to the facts of this. You, as a planning and zoning committee, are tasked with the job of deciding whether something should be rezoned based on its merits, detrimental or beneficial. Is that correct? And we've heard a lot of impassioned speeches from those folks that are in favor of this and saying that we need this, Pocatello needs this, and I agree with them. In fact, I know more than half of the people in this room agree with that. All of them agree with it, but I know that for a fact, talking to them, that they agree with this. This is needed. It's an important thing to have in our neighborhood and in our community. However, it needs to be in a spot that's not going to be detrimental to the neighborhood. So let's look at the facts. First of all, when you looked at the in favors, there was nobody in favor of it that talked about whether this was detrimental or beneficial to the rezoning, to the neighborhood. There was no beneficial element to this neighborhood as far as changing the zoning. But there are a number of detriments to this. The first detriment is, as Mr. Snell spoke about, we couldn't find appraisers or realtors to give values whether this is going to hurt the values of the community. Why? There are no comps for it. Fine, I'm a realtor. You're a realtor, Ryan. You and I both know, and any realtor will tell you, this will decrease the value of the property. It will. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This goes in, it's going to decrease the value of the property. Whether there's comps or not, it will decrease the value of the property. Number one detriment. Secondly, we don't know what's going to go in there. We've heard homeless shelter. They're saying, no, not a homeless shelter, transient housing. Who's going to be in the transient housing? Who's going to be there? Is there going to be security? Is there not going to be security? We don't know. That's a detriment. We don't know what's going to be there. You can't spot rezone something for something you don't know is going to be there. And that's what this is. It's spot rezoning something for the benefit of one person. We can't do that with that second detriment. Another third detriment is safety. We have a school 300 feet away from this property where we don't know what's going to be in there, who's going to be in there, who's going to be traveling in and out of that facility, whether there are security guards, whether there's not, can they go free will or not. There are children walking along there daily, okay? That's a safety issue. That's a detriment to this. So as a zoning committee, I take away all of the heart. Yes, we all want this. But I take away the heart and we look at the straight facts. There is no benefit for this in this neighborhood. This is a residential neighborhood. It should not be zoned high density residential for this type of a property. There are no benefits to this in this area, nor any other residential area. We found that out last year with the Bonneville area. There are plenty of properties. They ask us, well, why can't we find something outside? There are plenty of properties available, at least 4 that I know of listed that could change right now. You're looking at $1.5 million property to remodel something. You can do that someplace else outside a residential neighborhood. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Dave Herder. I live on Meadowbrook Lane. You guys heard from my wife here a few minutes ago about her living in Louisiana and stuff. You know, one of the things when we reconnected and decided to get married and she moved up, I noticed her children, at 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, she's very nervous and freaked out because her kids are out riding their bikes. They couldn't do that in Louisiana, and as the story stated. And I laughed at her because I was like, this is so stupid. The kids are safe. They're fine. We can see it. But knowing her story, we know why she was so nervous about that. The other thing is, we're raising our grandchild. So we have children from the ages of 25 now till 3. We still have 2 children in our house. One of those children picks the bus up right at the LDS church next to where this property is to be located. I don't feel safe, just as the gentleman before me said. We don't know who's going to be in this place. They've changed their strategy every other day. It's, well, we're going to have security. We're not going to have security. It's not for prisoners. It is for prisoners. They don't even know what they're going to do. So why would we support this when they can't even support themselves? Secondly, the one thing we hear about is, it's my dream. Well, I'm glad you have a dream. Right next to there is a wonderful little daycare that I've watched grow, because I've lived on Meadowbrook for 18 years. That daycare used to be in a home. It's grown to an actual daycare. Tell me how many people are going to come and pay a monthly service to have their children watch in a daycare next to this? That will destroy those people's dreams. I have a 3-year-old that we would like to do daycare. I will not take my 3-year-old to this daycare, not because I don't trust the daycare. I know the people, I love them to death. But because of this housing, I will find other daycare. This poor daycare, their dream is going to die if you guys accept this. I am all for Big Mama and her dream. But as the one lady said, why dream this when you can do this? And we do have properties in our area that would adequately take this. This is the wrong location for this dream. Why should this dream trump all of these dreams? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Anchka. Sorry. I live on Chapel. So my house faces where this property is. I have a 9-year-old daughter who goes to Syringa School. She also attends daycare. She's been there for 8 years. This is her family. The owner of the daycare and her daughters treat my daughter like family. Where I work, multiple people, their children all go there, and they've all said, if this happens, my child will be pulled from this daycare. This daycare and the love and support that they give these children is incredible, and there's nothing like it that I have found in this town. You rezone our property, and you do this, our child loses family. We lost a daughter a couple years ago, and the members of this daycare have taken her in and shown her extra love and shown her what it's like. They protect her like family. We rezone this, that means she has to move. And more than likely, half of these children are going to be misplaced because she doesn't have room for them. There is not properties in this town that will suit for the 75 children that she holds. At the max right now, I've heard of 50. So you have 25 children that are without daycare that will be starting over with people they don't know. I support Big Mama. I love what she's doing. I love my neighborhood. And we have been called names after names after names. We've been called unchristian because how dare we fight against something like this? I agree with what she's doing. We need to find a place where it is suited. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Robert McGill. I recently moved into the townhouses in the neighborhood. I used to live on Arthur, in between Arthur and Main, in Old Town Pocatello. I'm a single father, and I just moved because I was tired of finding needles in my parking lot where my son plays. So I talked to my son's mother. She lives in the neighborhood also, and she says it's a phenomenal place to try to get in there. I was able to secure a townhouse there, and the issue that I'm having is more of the consistency with some of the stories. I've heard we're going to do drug and alcohol screening before, and then I've heard that we're going to have security and there's going to be a strict drug and alcohol policy. My question is, what happens if that policy breaks? What happens if someone gets caught there with drugs? Okay, they're going to get kicked out. According to what I've understood, I may have understood wrong, but they'll be kicked out of that facility. If they get kicked out of that facility, where are they going to go? Okay. There's no place else around there to help, which means they're going to be let loose in the streets in the neighborhood. And I moved my son across town to get him away from needles in his playground. And I don't want to risk having that happen again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian Bigelow. I live on Park Lane. I just wanted to say that I grew up in this neighborhood. I walked home after school walked to my friend's house, stayed out late at night playing in the parks. I never was afraid as a child growing up in that neighborhood. Now I live on Park Lane. I have 3 little boys of my own, and I just want them to be safe. I want them to have the same childhood I had without me having to worry for their sake. I don't want my property values to go down. I just want to keep it a safe neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Sherilyn Edwards. I live on Hallmark Drive, and I just moved to Pocatello like 8 weeks ago for all the reasons that these people here moved to Pocatello. And I have a dream too. My dream is to have a really good daycare or other child-focused business here in Pocatello. When I came to Pocatello at the end of August, talked to a real estate agent, said, please show me a property that has a lot of outdoor space because I want my children at my daycare to play outside as much as possible. They showed me several places, and there is record that I did see these places. The second place that I saw was the place where Big Mama has her dream, and I said this would be excellent. When can I see it? The real estate agent told me you need to wait 2 weeks because we have to make arrangements with the people that are in there already. And I was like, that's fine with me. I know what daycare is about because I've had one before, and I've had a good one. And I've also been a foster parent, and I'm also a registered nurse. So I want to get back to this community because I have 3-year-old twins that I want to grow up here the way they want their children to grow up. This is the reason I want my kids to be able to play outside, all the things that they're saying. I was told I couldn't see this because of the tenant there, and I said, fine, I'll wait. We waited. Couldn't see the property. This was way back before I even heard anything about any of these things going on. I am ready to move forward as soon as I hear that I can see the property. I can give a contingency offer, but I'm here. It's Pocatello. We got time. Let's look at it. So that agent didn't call me back with an appointment to see it. I talked to the person that I bought my house from. They said, okay, we'll make an appointment for you. We made an appointment, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which is generally nap time. The children are down, we can go through, it's very quiet. We were met at the door by the tenant, which I would love to work with probably, because I know she's been there for 4 years. Where are 75 children and 15 employees going to go? This is a really good daycare. All I'd like to do is make it better and maybe work with the person that's there right now. I was met and said, you cannot see the property. Okay, fine. Talked to the agent and said, when can we see it? Now you can't see it until after the hearing. Okay, when can we see it? Not until the next hearing, so we still have not been able to see it. I'm still interested with due diligence, of course, in possibly purchasing this property and making it into a nice daycare and save the baseball field. Okay? Actually, I was thinking of having the playground completely fenced off. We've done some written planning for this. Fence off the playground, make it into a park-like setting. On Saturdays, possibly have that open for kids to have an organized outdoor daycare experience Saturday mornings 9 to 1 called Mud Club. This is all, contingent on, of course, due diligence. We don't know what needs to be done to the building. I don't know whether or not the tenant will take 5 minutes to talk to me or not. But my question is, where are the kids going to go? Where are the employees going to go? What's going to happen to this place that people are saying their children have grown up in? And I'm all for the Big Mama's idea. Yes, we need homeless shelters. I've lived in LA, I've lived in London, I've lived all over. And a question that I have is that I read that she's from Compton, California originally. Is that correct? Okay, so my question to you is, what are you thinking? She's well aware of the social conditions where there's high density going on. There's some reason why residential neighborhoods are being targeted. It's not necessary. I'm not sure what it is, but as everyone here has said, and I haven't done enough research, I'm just like, show me the property already, okay? I haven't done enough research to find out what the real reason is why these neighborhoods are being targeted, these residential neighborhoods are being a target. But as you're saying, there's plenty of places to do this, because I've been looking at places all over to do things here. Okay, my time is up. Okay, thank you. That's all I have to say. Somebody else has a dream.
Good evening. Gary Ratzlaff, 301 South Hayes.
I'm speaking on behalf of myself, Susie Rupp, and Guy Smith. So to begin with, I'm a retired architect, spent most of my life in Pocatello, designed this building. I additionally was the project architect for Grace Lutheran Church and School on Olympus. I was also the SRO housing in the Old City Jail for SECA. I designed and built the Bank of Idaho across Pershing from this project. And I was an original member of the board for Pocatello Neighborhood Housing Services. So when Guy asked me to look at it, Guy lives right on the corner adjacent to it, I went through the whole project. The first thing I looked for was a needs assessment to determine how many units they needed, what the homeless situation was in Pocatello, what the makeup of the homeless situation was, how many families, how many children, how many, I didn't find it. Now, maybe I missed it, but I didn't find it. So I don't really know how many units are required and what effect this project as presented will actually have on the homeless situation. And the only thing I can look at is what's been presented. I did hear Mr. Snell say tonight that what's presented isn't what they want to build, because they're going to build one unit and then they'll decide what they want to do for the next. In my work, we tried to find everything up front so when the project was done, we knew what was happening. In this particular case, they very clearly in the application say they want to deal with families, but they have 24 single bedroom units. I will say that I have an ardent disagreement with the staff in terms of mass and scale of the project in a residential neighborhood. The way it's designed, you have over 200 feet of blank wall. You have a stairwell, 105 feet, a stairwell, 105 feet. On the side facing the church, you'll have bedroom, bathroom, bathroom, bedroom, bathroom, bedroom, down the way. There's no indication of how the utilities are going to be handled, how they're going to air condition them, where the gas meters are going to be, where the electrical meters are going to be. If we talk about putting a wall up on the Mexican border, this is pretty close to that. So from a design standpoint, it really isn't very residential. The second story units are access from the end, and then there's a terrace with columns going down right by the parking lot, very much like an early 60s motel. Highly inappropriate, and the site is essentially asphalt and building. There's a little greenery around the outside, but there are basically no exterior amenities for anybody that lives here. There's no place to set a chair by your house. There's no barbecue. So if we're looking at longer term housing, we need to look at the whole housing thing. And I couldn't find any program that actually identified what the needs for the housing were. Let me check my notes real quick.
Now I'm going to give you 30 more seconds because you're speaking on the part.
So I guess the end of this thing is I don't see any compelling reason to even begin to consider changing the zoning. Whatever you approve is not what we've been shown. They've already told us that's not the case. They wanted to redesign it. Redesign it before you ask to rezone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sherry Daniel, and I live at 1350 Pershing. And I agree with what everybody has said here except for Carl. I disagree that we do need a traffic impact statement done. We have traffic on Pearl that is constant ever since they put the light on at Yellowstone, which we fought for, so it's great. But with Teton Hyundai there, their employees park out on the street and in the parking lot, so do their customers. You take your life in your own hands trying to get out on Pearl almost any time, especially when school's out. Everybody comes down Pearl. The people in this area will not go over and go down Meadowbrook like she says because it's too narrow. They won't go down Chapel because you have to fight to get out on Yellowstone. They're not going to go up to Highline because you have to go all the way up and then all the way back down. They're going to come over the shortest way and go out Pearl. and there's going to be tons more traffic there, and there's already little kids running around all the time. I'm surprised we haven't had anybody hit with all the traffic. And they're saying we're going to get 100 more plus cars in that area at any given time. I'm with them. I'm for Big Mamas, but not in my neighborhood. Thank you.
My name is Kimberly Holbrook. I live on the 900 block of Wayne. We've lived there for 25 years. We moved into that house when I was about 2 years old. I attended Syringa Elementary School for K through 6th grade. I have attended the LDS Church there, and I am currently an employee at the Growing Place. I teach preschool. I've been working there for 4 years, and I have my degree in early childhood care and education. I spent a year and a half in Oklahoma City, and I know, that people that are homeless need a place. Everyone needs a place. Everyone needs to feel like they're welcome, and everyone needs a home. So I love your dream. I do. I think that you're wanting to help these people is an amazing thing. But having lived here in this neighborhood, growing up here, and when I get married and have children of my own, I want to stay in this neighborhood. People think I'm crazy for saying that because most people want to get out of Pocatello, but I love Pocatello, and so I'm against the rezoning of this because I could lose my job. The plans take up half of our playground, and that's one of the reasons why we chose to be at this property, was because of the outside play area. Not to mention the traffic that will be going through our parking lot to get to this housing, if this were to be approved, is not safe for children. So I feel very strongly about this, that it's a great thing, just not at 1250 Pershing, and I really hope you take that into consideration.
Thank you.
I'm Abby. I live on Wayne as well. I get off the bus over at that bus stop every day, and I walk across that field. And to me, it's scary to have to see this happening, to see if this is going to happen, and if there's going to be this kind of thing. I'm afraid that something might happen. And I do work at the daycare, and I love being able to go there, and the first thing the kids say to me is, let's go play with the swings. And building this will take out the swings. The swings are their favoriteest toy. They love going over in that area, and it'll take out all of their toys. And so they won't be able to have the fun that they need to have. They won't be able to do what they want to do, and it makes me feel unsafe walking from my bus stop every day.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessica Barlow, and I'm at 351 East Griffith Road. So I guess my comments have to do with what a neighborhood is, and I found it really interesting that KPVI ran a story a little bit ago talking about Neighborhood Works and the work that they do in so many neighborhoods around here to restore homes, to build new homes for people. And their representative, Mark Dahlquist, he just talked about how important it is to provide home ownership opportunities, and those opportunities are key to successful neighborhoods. And I feel like our Syringa Elementary School neighborhood, we have that going for us, and that we should continue to move up in that direction, strengthening our neighborhood by providing ownership opportunities, because that's when people really care for what they have. And I'm concerned about the challenges that will come with adding any kind of supportive housing or any high density housing where people don't take ownership for what they have. I have friends, a friend who lived in the road home in Salt Lake, and she talked about how it was a blessing, but at the same time, she said her kids were exposed to drugs. I have a neighbor who lived near a facility like this, and he said things were often stolen from their yards, and that's when I just feel like I can't welcome that to my neighborhood, where we want to have a strong community. And so, like Neighborhood Works is doing in neighborhoods bordering ours, we want to strengthen our neighborhood. We want to maintain our current zoning. so that our neighborhood can be preserved and even improved, just like is going on in many parts of Pocatello, and not put at risk. So while this project aims to improve the lives of the homeless, the question is, will it also improve the Syringa neighborhood and bless the lives and the families and individuals already living there? And I don't believe it would.
Thank you.
So my name is Eddie Burt, and my family has lived on Pearl Street for the last 10 years.
Have you had a chance to sign in?
I will. I will. We've heard a lot of wonderful arguments, I guess, about their concern for Syringa and the daycare and their little children. I would just like to voice my concern about my teenage daughter. I have 5 children. My youngest is 16 years old. She walks up to the LDS church at least 2 or 3 times every week. And I'm not gonna lie, she's scared to death that this building is coming in. You say it's not a homeless shelter, it's a relocation facility, whatever you want to call it. The fact of the matter is, you still don't know who is going to be in those buildings. First, we were told it was going to be women and children. Then we're told that it's going to be single males. Well, Mr. Snell put up here on the screen that part of the good part of having this building here is that Syringa is there and that there's a daycare there. If there's going to be single males living in this relocation facility, why does it matter if there is a daycare or an elementary school nearby? If they have nothing to do with the women and children, it shouldn't matter to them. My daughter's concerned, my family is concerned. This is not the place to put this facility. Thank you.
My name is Richard Kutz. I live at 931 Park Avenue. I've been a resident in the neighborhood for over 20 years. I love my neighborhood. We took years finding this spot. My wife and I married late, and we took years picking out a home. This was our neighborhood. I'm concerned about facts. We've heard people talk about homeless, and our heartstrings have been touched, but I'm concerned about facts. I looked up on the computer and found very quickly 3 studies that had been done in the United States about what happens with recidivism. And Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New Jersey all came up with the same numbers. 67% of people who come out of these halfway houses are rearrested again. They are recidivant. In California, it was a little bit higher, 68%. The Bureau of Justice Statistics said about 68% released in 30 states were rearrested. The Pennsylvania's Corrections Secretary, Johnny Wetzel, who oversaw the study in Pennsylvania, called the study an abject failure because there were many, many gaps. For one of these houses to work, it takes a lot of support. That means staff there all the time. They pointed out specifically things like mental health, as well as drug counseling and other services. So in the end, what this comes down to is, what does this bring to my neighborhood? And I see no benefit by having it here. There is no reason to rezone just to bring this in. We don't want it in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Doug Palmer. I live at 1190 Willard. And it's nice to meet a lot of my neighbors I don't know. All the short timers. We first moved there in 1946 when I was 5. Now, 72 years later, my birthday today, I have to be here.
Happy birthday.
So anyway, I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of things built. I agree with everything they've said. I agree with what you've all said. But I'd like to thank the city for zoning it what it is today, 72 years ago. And it's kept the neighborhood safe till now. And when we first started this thing, it was going to be ex-cons going to live there, right? Now I come tonight, well, who knows what it's going to be? No security guards, no nothing. So I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, can I present this to you guys to study over the weekend or whatever? It's out of the Idaho Statesman. Boise man accused of stabbing stranger was released from prison 4 months ago. He did it within 2 blocks of a safe house like this. So if I can present that to you, you can study it and see what it's worth. A lot of the things I was going to read to you here, I got a lot, but 3 minutes are nothing. A lot of it's been said. So the final thing I want to say is this. In the NFL, they have replay to make the right call of what was called on the field. To change the call, it has to show undisputable proof to change the call. It's the same here. The call on the field was the zoning that we had. Now, somebody wants to challenge that call, and I have not seen anything presented here that was change that undisputable call to change the call on the field. And also, I think someone is only looking for financial gain on the property. Now, I built a house, a long time ago, 2 houses down. Where are they going to do it? My kids went to Grace Lutheran kindergarten and stuff. Grace Lutheran was doing a good thing. Then they went on to Syringa, which I helped build when I got out of the Army in '62, but that's another story. So, getting older, I lost my thought. But anyway, you've got the message here tonight, boy, and to see, I've rebought my parents' home. I'm retired, my wife's retired. We've remodeled, spent a lot of money on it, and I want to retire in peace and comfort, not worry every time I go out the door to do something.
Okay, thank
You want
you.
this?
Yeah, if you want to bring it forward. Thank you.
And one last thing, I appreciate you all volunteering for your job. I wouldn't do it on my life. Thank
you. David Pearson. I live in Pocatello on Willard Street. My wife grew up on the corner there, northeast corner of that house, and she talks about it, and we love the area. We love the everything about the community. It's a community. It was a church there. They did their stuff there, their school, and now we're looking at rezoning it to, high density. My biggest concern is not that it's being rezoned at high density and Big Mama's moving, her thing is there. Her purpose is a good cause. The problem is once you've actually set a precedent that it is going to be high density, then what's going to happen is the next person that comes in, when she gets her dreams of going massively bigger and she moves off of it, what's going to happen is now we're going to have 2 buildings there, or 1 building, is the way I'm understanding it, that's going to be a high-density housing. Single apartments, or however they're laid out. Now we're set precedents that it will be high density. A developer's going to come in and he's going to say, oh, hey, I've got parking lot here already. I've got, he's going to come in and he's going to say, oh, by the way, I'm buying the property. It's already been high density. I just want it to continue. And so what's going to happen is it could be worse than what we're looking at. I plan on living in my house the rest of my life. So I'm concerned what my kids are going to have to deal with. We bought it, zoned the way it is. We bought the area that we're living in because of the community that's there. I just don't think that we need this in this middle of this location. As you can see, there's a lot of people that live here that bought there for a reason. And partial of the reason that they are buying there is because of what he brought up, that it is close proximity. It's quick, easy getting around everywhere in town. The other thing is the Idle Falls one. He said that it was actually, they built first and then the people bought those lots and it was residential. This is the opposite. We bought them as residential. She's wanting to come in and put in a high density. That's just my concern.
Thank you. Any others that would like to speak? Very good. Are there, commissioners, I guess we'll turn the time back to the applicant for rebuttal at this point. Perhaps there are questions that were put out there or any clarification that you would like to give on any of the information.
Well, I'm like one of the people that spoke earlier. My hat's off to you guys. Maybe we should be questioning your intelligence to do this for volunteers. I don't know. Anyway,
and we're going to have you try and speak as loud as you can.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Anyway, so a whole bunch of things were brought up. Do you want me to try to address those, or I noticed that you had a question on something. Where do I go first?
If you want to just address some of the concerns that were brought up, that would be great. And then if we have questions, we'll direct those back to you.
Okay, very good. Something that keeps reoccurring so many times is, number one, the fact that we offered security guards and then we took them away. That was in response to the neighbors telling me they didn't want security guards. And so we said, okay, we don't have them.
Let's keep it respectful, please.
So that was the only reason we had them there to begin with, was to make them feel good. They were saying that did not make me feel good, and so we said, well, we don't have to have them, so we'll take them away. So, we're just trying to respond to what I'm hearing. The other thing that has been brought up is it going to be ex-con single men in here or not? Well, that came from one of the neighbors. It didn't come from us. From the very beginning, it's always been the same vision of being able to help out people that wanted to move up in their station, if you will. And so the idea that changed, that's not true. Our vision has not changed there. Some of the other things that were said, let me go through here real quick. According to the National Housing Alliance, the most successful supportive housing takes place in residential neighborhoods because the residing clients feel more a part of the community along with all of the services they have access to. Not only is that from their studies, it only makes common sense. The other thing that needs to be said too is because right from the very beginning it came out that these were going to be ex-cons, and so all of a sudden the fear, the anger, the anxiety rises to the top, and in reality homelessness doesn't usually generate because of somebody being in prison or that they've been caught doing drugs or whatever. It generally comes because their affordable housing is no longer affordable. They lost their job, or as one other person said earlier, the landlord sold a building, sold a home. That happened to my own daughter just this summer. The landlord sold a home. She didn't have any place to go. She's living with us. If she didn't have us, where would she be? So the majority of people that end up needing these services are not ex-cons. We do have a high barrier intake form. We pray that we don't have anybody fall through the cracks. Can we guarantee that? Absolutely not. But the guy that moves in across the street from you, you can't guarantee that either. And some of these neighbors have already mentioned that they're already seeing drug paraphernalia. There's been a drug house or a meth house in the neighborhood, and on and on and on. And so there's no way that anybody can guarantee any one of these things not happening. Unfortunately, that's the truth. We will be doing everything in our realm of possibilities to eliminate those things. You heard from people, everyday people, that if you looked at them, you would never guess they ever experienced homelessness in their life. We've heard about people that had a bad experience in a transitional care. That's unfortunate. I wish that hadn't ever happened, but those kind of things do. Our nearest neighbor in Idaho Falls, 2 different projects, have had almost 0 incidences where people have had to be, or where the police have been called out. The one case that I remember being told about, there was 2 in 4 years, the guy went off his meds. That could happen to the guy next door, but he got unruly, and so they had to call the cops. That's the type of issues that we generally see there. And so raising the fear that these are going to be sex offenders or violent criminals, that's just not who typically ends up needing these services. And we're running the best screening process that we can possibly come up with to eliminate those kinds of problems. Let's see. This one probably is a note too. Personnel from Neighborhood Works have stated that our project is a great precursor to persons wanting or needing their services. It would provide people the opportunity to save money to aid in the down payment to purchase a home through Neighbor Works. A local counselor has said that he will work with us by using graduate students from the counseling department here at ISU. So we're integrating as many of these things as we possibly can in an area that, as we've described, is right on this neighborhood, or right on this edge, both ways. Let's see. They keep saying too that it shouldn't be in this area, that it should be in some other properly zoned place. And the truth of the matter is, as you guys know, even if we went to an area that was already zoned high density, we would still have to go through the process of getting a conditional use permit, and all of these same ideas would still be coming at us. It would be a different group of neighbors, but it would still be the same concerns. And so I just go back to look at who these homeless people are. Just because you're homeless doesn't mean that you're guilty of a crime. It doesn't mean that you've done something horrible in your past. It's
a homeless shelter?
What's that?
It's a homeless shelter?
Just let him speak. Sorry.
Well, I don't know what it is. You said it wasn't a homeless shelter. Now it is.
Anyway, if I misspoke there, my apologies. You all know what I'm after.
No, we don't. That's why we're asking.
Okay, please, no comments from the public at this point, please.
The other thing is that they've talked about the parking. A big part of that parking is to address the daycare needs there. They have to have so many parking spots. We will redo that for there. We've told the owners of the daycare that we want them to stay there. We will need a daycare. We've told them that we would move the playground equipment over to the other part so that wouldn't be lost. We've addressed the property values as best we can in terms of getting actual data instead of opinion. So I think we've tried our best to address all of that. It's been mentioned that we're spending a lot of money for 24 people. Well, we're not spending that much money for 24 people. We're spending that much money for a whole bunch of people for decades to come, and it's going to have a huge impact. This is just hardly a touch of what's needed in Pocatello, and so we can do this, and we should do this. They deserve it. So I would just ask that, that maybe the level of fear can come down, the anxiety can come down, and we look at this project as a potential, because I've said this to these neighbors before, I still have this vision that these neighbors, because I know so many of them, that once it's there, they're going to come over there and they're going to say to some young mother, let me help you with your daughter. Let's help her. Let me show you how to braid her hair. I know that kind of thing is going to happen. These are good people. I understand their fears because it's been elevated to an unnecessary height. Anyway.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Can I say one more thing before we go?
No, sorry. The public hearing has...
Ross asked for 15 minutes.
The gentleman, Ross, he asked a question, but it never got proposed.
Actually, I would like to address that if I can. I shouldn't have, no, I'm sorry. Yes, Ross brought up that somehow I'm going to benefit from this. If there's any way I can benefit from it, I have not seen it. There's no requirement for a pharmacist. I have no way of benefiting in any way, shape, or form. I can even tell you that, well, I won't go there, but I promise, there's no way for me to make any money. I don't have any designs to that are, there's nothing there.
What will you do if this is passed and the community still does not embrace your project?
That would be horrible. Frankly, that would be horrible. But here's what's happened. The level and the intensity of the pushback against this has grown citywide. And so if it's not going to happen here, I don't see it happening anywhere. Well, we can't hear what you're talking about. Because they've got it so that everybody's saying, well, if it's not going to be in that neighborhood, then it shouldn't be in my neighborhood either. And so it's going to just, it's all over town.
Can you guys repeat what he said so we can hear it?
So
He can
just
speak louder.
Just to kind of help everybody understand too, I understand everybody wants to know this information, and we're trying our best to accommodate that, yes, but it's most important that we hear it. This is all designed for us to hear it. It's not designed as an information outlet for everybody else, and I know that might sound terrible, and I apologize, but we are meeting the standard with everything as it's done there. And so he was just basically concerned that this would be, it would be terrible if it were passed, and that the community really does need to support it. So. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. For Carl?
Is Matt still here?
That is Carl's presenting on that. Oh, let's have Carl come up. Carl, can we have you come forward? We have a question for you.
Good evening.
Hi, Carl. A lot of the people spoke had concerns about the permit, the conditional use, and the high density. What would happen with this rezoning if something happened and Big Mama's house just went out of business?
So the rezone right now is really for the density to be followed by a conditional use permit. You know, if it went out of business, the facility would need to comply with this conditional use permit. You know, other than that, that's a good question. And I can look into that more as far as how we would process that moving forward and iron that out.
Would that open up the neighborhood to more high density housing?
I don't believe so. The conditional use permit would be for a multifamily development to be operated. If everything were approved, the rezone, the conditional use permit, it would be for a multifamily development facility to be operated as a group living supervised facility. That facility, if she went out and somebody else came in, would need to operate under that conditional use permit.
In other words, the conditional use permit is only for that particular owner.
They may be transferred with the property.
It may be transferred property.
Other questions for Carl? Okay, thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
With that, I am going to close the public hearing, and commissioners, it is now open for discussion. So as a commission, we are going to discuss the matter. We would ask that you maintain quiet as possible as we kind of deliberate and discuss the issue. Who wants to start us off?
Well, this is a great idea, and I understand what they want to do, but I also understand the neighbors' concerns with the plans not seeming to be concrete. You know, there seems to be a lot of constantly evolving things that seem to not be giving clarification to the neighborhood about what they're going to see. That is a concern.
homeless.
I think there's a bad picture painted about it, honestly. I don't think, and I could be wrong, okay, because we don't have the crystal ball. A lot of people are talking about people coming into this house with needles in their arm and guns in their pockets and ready to just go crazy. And I think that is the total opposite of the people that are going to be coming in this place. Like, these are people that need places to stay because they are in need. They need a place to stay. These people need to be loved. And I don't think that's debatable on anybody's, thought process, okay? I'm not one to show my cards before I vote, because I don't think that's good. But I think this is a beautiful neighborhood. I think it's a great, I've had friends living there. I've done business with people that live in that neighborhood. And I think personally it should be exactly the same as it was yesterday, as it should be in 10 years. With that said, I think this is a great opportunity for the city, and I wish I could do anything I can to do it. This is not the right spot for it. I feel bad saying that, but I think we need to find another spot.
So as I kind of look at this, I question, okay, so if we have because a lot of the discussion tonight has been on the homeless needs of our community, right? And I don't think anybody can argue that there are needs out there that aren't currently being met that this is proposing to try and meet. If I step back a little bit as and look at this as perhaps a private development project, and take the emotion of those needs out of it and just consider, okay, a private developer comes in and is looking at rezoning this piece next to these homes. I think we probably even have more people come in opposition to it. And perhaps the overall thought of it being a homeless shelter softens a portion of it. But does bring up a number of questions as well. Is a private development that is just apartments going to be considered more stable than this transitional housing is proposed? I suppose in any case, we've seen as a commission before where we've been asked to rezone areas for more dense development. And I think it's a hard thing for us to do, that the zoning is in place as a protection for the neighbors. And, I agree with everything that's said in this being on a border. It's right up next to commercial. There's, a number of different uses that are around there. But the underlying facts are it is currently zoned the way it's zoned, and makes a difficult decision as to whether that should be something that needs to be changed.
I think from my perspective and listening to the arguments on both sides, that there's a lot of passion involved here, and I can appreciate that. My biggest concern is, and I come from a background, I might say that I was a director of legal services for I'm not an attorney, but for a corporation. And so I dealt with people and people's emotions a lot. But my biggest concern here is the lack of continuity, I can't see the word is.
Continuity.
Continuity, thank you, darling. With what has been presented to this board. At first I'm like everybody else. We're charged to read all the documents and to thoroughly understand what is being said in order for us to make a good decision to present to the City Council. The information I've gotten so far has only done one thing, muddle my head. And that bothers me a great deal. I don't understand why, as professional people, you quite frankly couldn't come with a proposal that I didn't hear from people that it had to be changed, that this had been changed and that had been changed, and then put the blame here. Someone, on this side of the fence says this is all wrong. Somebody over here says, oh, no, you're wrong. I would commend everybody, though, for being good about being quiet and letting the people speak when they wanted to. I think that's all my biggest concern. I'll just be quiet now, but I would say that one of the things that, and reading a lot of contracts all my life, is that when you bring forward something, you need to have a full thought process behind it, and there's no room for, especially with a community setting, of saying to people, well, this was said, but that was yesterday, and today we're going to say this. So that's all.
Ryan, if I may.
Yes, please.
So on that note, I think it's important to have a general idea of what is supposed to happen. However, I also don't think it's our job as Planning and Zoning Commission to micromanage what their application or screening process is. That's not where our job lies. I'm an occupational therapist. You may or may not see me at the hospital, but that's where I operate. And it is my job to teach life skills to patients who have had strokes or amputations or brain injuries, ... I'm going to try to speak a little slower because I want to make sure that I don't break HIPAA in a minute here. But I recently worked with someone who was incarcerated for an extended amount of time. And this person was great to work with, extremely nice, very respectful, and extremely receptive to everything that I gave him or her. Knowing that and knowing this person's situation, I can say that this person's parole officer found housing through some other allocated funding. Now, we don't know whether ex-cons are or are not going to be part of this proposal, but let's talk a little bit about recidivism because it was brought up in the public hearing. I did a little bit of additional research, and the first thing that you need to know is the research that is out there is not, they don't all say the same thing. Every study is going to show you something that's just a little bit different. And from what I found in a pretty rudimentary search is somewhere between 45% to 77% are rearrested within 5 years. Now, if you're going to believe the statistics, you have to delve in further and also realize that of that 45 to 77, 32% are reconvicted. And only 25% have done crimes that are so bad that they are reincarcerated. Now, going back to what Mr. Snell said earlier about the community that you are in dictates a lot of recidivism. This is important because if you just think about it, if you go back to the same place where you have gangs and drugs and bad influences, then what are you gonna do? Those are the people that you're gonna be with. You guys obviously love each other. You love your kids. You love your community. Whether or not this passes, I don't know. But if it happens, try to open up to the possibilities of making someone else's life as good as yours. There's a lot of talk about it's not worth one person's dream. Well, let's say, for example, that there's only 18 rooms and that they only stay for 6 months. Within 5 years, that's 180 lives that have been changed. We're never going to know people's true intentions, and we hear a lot about the bad stuff. Back to recidivism, sorry. After 3 years of being out of the system, it's only 6 to 19% that get put back into the system. And it's because the prison system doesn't teach life skills. Now, Big Mama, I've never met you before. We've never talked. I've never been to your church. And I don't know what we support you means to these people. I don't know if it means funding. I don't know if it means volunteer. I don't know if it means that they're going to help you paint your rooms when and wherever this does happen. But as an occupational therapist, I will come and help you teach life skills to whoever walks through your doors. You're welcome. Somebody in the back mentioned that why don't I embrace it in my community? I have. I live in a community with Belmont Care Center. I have no idea what they do because they're so quiet that the only thing that I see is them walking in a small gaggle across Fifth Avenue to the Common Sense convenience store. That's it. That's all I see. These are the people that I work with. So I would gladly have them in my community, except there's probably not any space.
Other comments? I think in the end, the community really has to accept something for something to be successful like this. As I've looked and down in the Salt Lake area, I know that they've lately been pushing really hard on the homeless situation, and every area is different. Every area has different needs. But I feel like it's an issue here, no question. But what's the right location?
I don't think anybody here does. Be respectful. They don't want
Sorry,
what
no,
you want.
we're not taking comment. Sorry.
I think one of the comments that was made somewhat bothered me, Mr. Snell, and that was that you said that you were kind of at the end of your rope. And I don't know if I was wrong in making that assumption by what you said, in that if it didn't work in this place, that there was a possibility or probability that it wouldn't work at all in this particular area. And I'm not sure that's true.
Can I address that?
You can ask him a question if you choose to ask him a question, but if you just make a statement,
yeah.
Do you want to ask a question?
Yes. What makes you think that this is the end of the road for putting a process in place here at this particular location? Why are you concerned that this will be the end of it?
So if you'd come forward and respond to the question.
Yes. Excuse me. Okay, so number one, we're not going to quit. We will definitely go on. My fear is, my absolute fear is that if you look at the addresses on the petitions that these guys have collected, they're from all over town, all over Chubby, clear up the creeks out of town. They're all over. And so there's this inflammation that, I mean, I'm a pharmacist, so I would use that word, but there's this inflammation in the community as a result of this effort. So that if this project moves over to, a mile or 2 miles away, that group of people, because this still has to go through conditional use permitting no matter what, that group of people is going to say, well, hey, it wasn't good enough. I mean, that neighborhood was too good for it. My neighborhood is too good for it. That's my fear. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioners, the item is before you. We can continue to discuss this. If somebody is prepared to make a motion, we can also entertain a motion.
I'm prepared to make a motion. I'm actually going to motion for the approval of the application based on the fact that this is not the final say on this. It's going to go before the city council. I want to give her and you more chance to figure out exactly what is going to happen here and to get this nailed down, and the city council will be making the final decision. So I want to give them more time to see if they can make this project work and to work with the community. So I will motion for recommend approval of the application from Grace Lutheran Church to rezone by contract the property located at the 1200 block of Pershing Avenue.
I will second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Eastland, would you call the vote?
O'Connor?
Yes.
Okay, Carl.
Yeah, he wants to talk.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Carl, please.
Good evening, Carl Anderson, City of Pocatello. I would like to just point out that if you would like to recommend approval, please clarify whether or not you would also include the staff conditions from the staff report.
Oh, I recommend it with the staff conditions from the staff report. Julia?
Technicality.
Second.
Thanks. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
O'Connor?
Yes.
Sanders?
Yes.
Burnt?
No.
Moore?
Yes.
Ricks?
No.
Satterfield?
No. Motion fails. So, continued discussion. We're tasked with making a recommendation to the City Council on this topic. And so we need to have a motion that passes. Otherwise, it continues indefinitely until we come up with something to send to the City Council. So let's talk a little bit about some of the concerns, and this is, I guess, the negotiation part where we try and figure out how we can get a recommendation that goes to City Council that would pass this committee. Any thoughts on that? I agree with the concept that the City Council is the one that's making the final decision. And with that, there's going to be the ability we get to do this all again. However, I don't know that...
You gotta quit.
Just a point of order, because I don't know.
Hey, you gotta
Does
quit.
this go to council either way?
Either way.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, and so we can make a motion that denies it, we can make a motion that approves it. No matter what, it can go to council. The only reason it wouldn't go to council is if the applicant chose to withdraw their application. Otherwise, it continues forward. The council can follow our same vote. They can also vote differently.
Thanks for clarification, appreciate it.
Any thoughts on how to make something work here? Unfortunately, we are down a commissioner, so we have an even number, and we're tasked with a difficult task of finding a way to get a recommendation for council.
Well, maybe let's start with, are there any conditions that could be added that would sway towards approval or denial?
Okay.
From my standpoint, I still, like I said, have apprehensions. That's not a good word, but it's the word I got. Concerning just for everybody to be on the same page. To everybody to understand what either side is for or against. And for Mama over there and her group to come to have, I guess if you go through the city council, to have your information in a way, formed in a way that makes it clearly understandable about everything that has been said, and there's no caveats to once you say it this way, then you can't change your mind 3 days later and say it this way and change it back to this way. And that seems to be a vicious circle that's been happening here. That's what's bothering me is when I want to vote, I want to be clear in my mind and my heart that what I'm voting on is what I genuinely am thinking in my head, that yes, I've got all the facts. The facts are told to me in a clear, concise way, and that I thoroughly understand so I can make an intelligent decision. And right now, I don't have that sense. But if, in fact, we could, I would be willing to amend mine if it is the caveats are put into place, that the concerns are within the caveats, and that the city council understands and gets the true story of the information. Then I'm okay with it. But I certainly, I can't say enough about that. It has to be something that the people can thoroughly understand. Whether they agree or they don't agree with you, they need to thoroughly understand. And anytime that an individual gets this warning bell going off, Scorpios do that a lot. When you get the warning bell going off, that why was this said then, and now we're saying this, and if you come before this commission and you want something done, then understand what it is you want. Don't bring up several different things and then change them. So that's all I have to say.
I love this concept of the transitional housing, and I want to be able to support that. I just have a really hard time supporting it in this location. And so you talk about, different conditions that can occur there. If you reduce the number clear down to where I think I would actually be comfortable with it in that neighborhood, in that zoning, I don't think that it would be effective for the applicant. I think that, and I guess it would just be my hope that there could be a location that is zoned currently for it, even though, yes, we have the power to change that zoning, and that's why we're here tonight. And not that I can say what the city council will do or won't do. Before this meeting, I watched the hearing from the Bonneville Association appeal from the city council, and tried to inform myself on how that all occurred. And the city council did vote that down, and I realized that stuff has changed, and they're trying to come with a better overall plan. But that's my struggle with it, where we're at right now.
So being part of the real estate world, do you know of anywhere else that this would be acceptable, that would have the services close by that this population needs?
So my opinion is it's probably not a super easy thing to do, to find some place where you're not going to get property owners, whether they're businesses or whether they're homeowners, residents, that won't complain about something like this. I think location-wise, yes, there's likely going to be other locations that will have similar access and services, but the conflict becomes in trying to put it in a single-family residential area. I think that this is what we're going to see every time that happens. Mm-hmm. And if the community doesn't support it, even though we support it, we're not elected, we're appointed, we're set here, the elected officials, I see them listening very hard to what the neighborhood has to say. And I think that that's what occurred at the Bonneville hearing. And as much as I want this to happen, I really do, and I don't want you to think that I don't. I just don't know that approving it or recommending approval is going to go very far. So we can make motions and vote all night. And then the other option would be to, I suppose, and I guess I'll have to ask, but if we were to table it out and get our final commission member here, where all 7 of us were here, nobody wants to delay this any more than what we already have. So,
Mr. Satterfield, I think we need me to make a decision tonight.
I agree with that. Let's make a decision.
I have a question.
Okay.
Dorothy, you were talking about needing clarity on what the proposal is. Are there any specific factors that you're looking for?
I can't say there's any specific factors other than I'd like to see a more cohesive presentation by your group. And again, I think the thing that bothers me the most, and I go back to that, is that people need to understand thoroughly what it is that they're voting against. I think that one of the biggest problems we have here is, quite frankly, it's a happy neighborhood that doesn't want to see any high-density things in a neighborhood. That being said, you know, everybody's got an opinion, and it's the same thing. If you put it in my neighborhood, I'm not so sure that I wouldn't be inclined to say the same thing, to say no, just simply because it's my neighborhood, it's my children, it's my way of life. But I'm not charged with doing that, thank goodness. But I always believe that any group that's doing a presentation needs to do a presentation that people thoroughly understand and come to grips one way or the other with, I'd like to say, a hard sell. And that they understand everything's being said. And to me, I think, you know, I look at you guys and I think, well, you came before, but this is the second time, and it still isn't clear. So I'm kind of the opinion, and I know people don't like to hear this, but I'm of the opinion, and until we get a clear understanding of just exactly what it is going to be, with no changes to what the proposal is, that we put this off again. That's my thought, so that we all understand just exactly what it is. Because in my mind, like I say, in my mind, there's just been too many advantages to this being one thing said and then another thing being said. So it's getting late and I'm tired. But
See, I understood what Mr. Snell said word for word perfectly. I don't think there was any debate or any gray area. I think the interpretation of what the facts were on this side is what the gray area was.
It's the gray area.
And that's not
I
what we
think
got
that
to
needs to
judge
be-
by. I mean, we have to judge facts, not what people think the facts are. And so what
But I
Mr.
want the facts.
Yeah, he said the facts perfectly, like word for word. This is the way this is what's gonna happen. You know, there might have been a couple things that we're gonna have a guard, we're not gonna have a guard. Well, why aren't you gonna have a guard? Well, because you told us not to have a guard. So I mean that I don't know. I'm not sure if I got that right, okay? But you know what I'm saying is that the facts came really great from them. There's not any. I don't think there's any debate of what they're talking about. It was very clear.
Well, I'm an intelligent person, I can think I am, and there's still some debate in my head. So, because there is, I still am seeking clarification.
Jack, we've not heard much from you.
Talk, buddy.
It seems to me that the applicant really does want it in a residential neighborhood. And to, I'm trying to think of,
But it's not your, honestly, respectful guys, like, I love you. I think you're all great, okay? And I hope you have a great ride home. But this is a conversation with us. It's not for you guys to hear. Like, I hope that you can hear this.
It's okay, Jack.
But it's not our responsibility.
It's okay. It's okay. All right, Jack.
well, it seems to me that they really do want it in a residential neighborhood where they would hope that the residents will welcome the people that are living in the home. And I'm not sure whether these people would be welcoming to them. It seems to me that they wouldn't not. But so it's very close to, I was very close to saying no, but I think that with time people can learn to accept others because that's our nature. We get used to something. It becomes people are more open to what's already there. But it's also new that they fight change.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I feel that something that was disturbing to me about all the public comments was I saw a lot of fear-mongering seem to be going on and stereotyping. I heard that very much that all single men were pedophiles seemed to be what was coming across to me, and that was a fear that you know, every woman who walked anywhere in the vicinity was going to automatically be raped. I mean, there's a lot of fear-mongering, there was a lot of stereotyping, there's a lot of bias, and I just feel that we need to give a chance for the truth to come out, for them to talk about what is and what isn't, and to hear the reality, because it sounds like there's a lot of propaganda going around that might be false. And I really feel that they need more time, and you guys all need more time, which is why I am recommending approval to give them more time and to go in front of the city council.
And I've heard stories, or news stories, where somebody lost their house because of 27 cents. People have been foreclosed on for 27 cents. I don't know whether that was completely legal, but it has happened. And so people can become homeless for a myriad of reasons. And the biases that the neighbors seem to have about that is not necessarily warranted.
And to his policy, you know, we all talk about the new developments going on in town and home prices rising. Well, rents are rising as well. When rents rise, incomes are not rising. People are being pushed out. And homelessness is going to go up because of that in our community.
To caveat on that, there's somewhere in the order of 2.3 to 3.5 million homeless in our country, but there's something like 17 million homes that are on the market. So there's definitely a discrepancy of what can people afford versus what's available for them.
Carl, can we have you come up and perhaps answer a couple more questions? So, in the situation that we're in right now, can you talk procedurally about some of our options if we aren't able to come and how that works so that we're all educated?
Sure. So at tonight's meeting, if, for instance, the commission were to table it or continue it to a date certain, it would still be the commissioners here who heard tonight's presentation that would be able to vote on it. So the tiebreaker in this situation would not be able to vote on the application currently. If you were to also do that, you may add conditions to that, additional studies, things like that to provide clarification. Otherwise, the commission will need to come to a decision tonight.
Okay. So it's either, there's no such thing as no decision. It's either a decision or table it for another meeting.
Correct.
Other questions procedurally? Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Any thoughts on how to proceed? It's a tough one. I've been 7 years on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and this is the toughest one.
Oh, great.
And it's my baptism by fire.
Yes, it is. Welcome.
Well, at this juncture, we're down to two things. We can agree to table this for another meeting, or we can take a vote now. Okay. Some members of the committee, what is your wishes?
We need to have a motion of some sort in order to proceed. And we can repeat motions, we can alter motions, we can do whatever it takes to try and get something that's going to get a majority vote.
Should we motion for the denial? And then if it doesn't pass, then we table?
We can try whatever you guys want to try.
I got to give the proper verbiage. 2 seconds, please. I motion to recommend the denial of the application from Grace Lutheran Church to rezone by contract the property located in the 1200 block of the Pershing Avenue to be zoned residential high density to follow the greater density multifamily dwelling to be operated as a supervised group living facility, and it does not meet the standards for approval under Chapter 17.02.130 of Pocatello Municipal Code for the reasons of it does not meet the zoning standards.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. And if there's any discussion on the motion, we can take some time to discuss the motion. Otherwise, Aislinn, would you call the vote?
Burns,
Yes.
Ricks,
Yes.
Moore,
No.
O'Connor,
No.
Sanders,
No.
Satterfield.
Yes. Motion fails.
It's table.
Okay.
Can I try one more time?
You certainly may.
What if we added a condition that the applicant must submit this is a nonprofit, right? To submit a drafted nonprofit business plan with projections for city council. Full business plan.
So in terms of discussion, does that...
I have no expertise in nonprofits, so I don't know what that would do.
Yeah, I'm not familiar myself with business plans, but
Could you reiterate that again?
what you're suggesting is actually have a clearer picture of everything that's going to go on.
Exactly.
Right.
So let me give you some of my concern too, and I'll. If we're having as difficult of a time with it as we are, the question becomes, if it goes through, it's a battle. You know, I think that we're proving here right now that there's a battle here to be fought, and then we're trying to decide, do we continue that battle, let it continue to be fought, or not? No matter what, it goes to the city council. But I don't know. It just seems like it's a very long road, even with an organized business plan. Perhaps that might change the voting up here. Whether that changes, you know, the overall opinion, I don't know. But if it does change a vote up here and that causes something to happen, then let it happen. Jack, do you have any alternate motions that? I know you're kind of struggling on both of that, and so I'm just curious to know what motions and whatnot would.
Well, whether we approve or disapprove, it still goes to the city council.
Correct. It's just we get to give our opinion as a commission on what we think the council should do.
Recommendation.
A recommendation. Yep.
Could we make another motion for approval with staff conditions and Julia's suggestion of a full business plan? Can I make that motion for approval?
Okay. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion that we want to have?
I think even with the business plan, it doesn't, like, it doesn't change the dirt.
Yeah.
The dirt stays the same. It still needs to be rezoned, no matter if it's a fantastic bulletproof business plan or if it's Swiss cheese, but business plan, it's the same. That's just my 2 cents.
If a private developer came in with a good business plan, is that something that we approve?
I mean, I don't necessarily think that like I said earlier, I think it's kind of micromanaging the situation. But if it clarifies some of the salient points that people need to know and are really searching for those answers, then that might help alleviate something.
Okay. Well, there's been a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and call the vote. Lisa?
O'Connor.
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
Burnt.
No.
Moore.
No.
Ricks.
Yes.
Satterfield.
No. So
I motion we table this agenda item.
I would love to get this done tonight.
I would too.
It's a lot of stress. Like when last time,
I know. It's been a long 3 weeks for everybody in this room.
I went on vacation. I went on vacation and I was stressing about it on my vacation. It should feel like it, you know what I'm saying? And so I like.
We're not doing it. Oh, I'm not reading.
So.
This is it.
As the chairman, I am not, I don't make motions. And so I'm not going to make any motions. We're just going to kind of talk this through a little bit more. Sit down.
So what made you change your mind on this with the business plan?
What made me change my mind? I personally felt that the answers to some of the questions that we discussed here
would be answered.
That would be answered, yes. And that by, if there was going to be a caveat to it, that, you know, they'd give a business plan and the business plan would be solid, then my particular concerns would be taken care of.
So for you, it's less a concern about the actual location, more a concern about how it's going to function. Is that?
I'm going to say it's 75, 35, 35. Okay, 75, 25. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Jack?
I don't think really the business plan would
do anything.
Okay. But
That's okay.
But the motion without the business plan, you're not in favor of.
Let's go back over what that motion would actually be.
So I think you initiated the first motion. Do you want to kind of talk to her about that?
Just so clear.
The first motion to approve it, so we're approving it to go before the city council for a conditional use permit. The conditional use permit belongs solely to this entity, so if they go out of business or something there and sells to apartment, it wouldn't go to anyone else. Now, we are not making the final approval, the city council.
I understand this.
So I'm thinking this buys more time for them to get their ducks in a row and for them to clarify their arguments and to have this be a better discussion for the city council. And the city council is the elected officials, and it is their right to decide this. And I just want to, I approve it because I think it's a good project. And my conscience says that it should be approved.
So then the question becomes, if we are to table this, is there, like, are there conditions that we put out there that will help somebody, or are we going to stay in a gridlock indefinitely? Because if that's the case, tabling it really doesn't solve anything.
No, that does not solve it.
Maybe we need to stick to, let's talk more about what the rezoning actually means and what are the pros and cons of having this transition. Because I know that was, Jared, I think that was kind of your...
Yeah, that's where my thing is.
Yeah. Okay.
Mine is not really anything but changing dirt to something where something shouldn't be there.
First thing on here I would like to talk about, the first condition according to the staff is supervised group living. Can you explain exactly what that means?
Are you asking staff? Carl, if you would come up, please.
Maybe that will help us a bit. Because the level of supervision seems to be in question for a lot of people.
So your question is the definition of group living supervised?
Supervised group living. The that they would have to adhere to.
One moment.
So Pocatello Municipal Code defines group living supervised as living facilities for groups of unrelated individuals, which include at least one person residing on the site who is responsible for supervising, managing, care, training, or treatment of residents. Group living facilities may also be characterized by monitoring and/or providing shared facilities for eating, hygiene, and/or recreation. Examples include but not limited to nursing convalescent homes, residential care or treatment facilities, convents or monasteries. Tenancy is longer than 1 month. Does not include detention or post-detention facilities.
So they couldn't take people who were just out of prison?
It is not a post-detention facility.
No, so that they can't do that. So, and because you have to have someone on site then 24 hours?
They do need some sort of on-site supervisor.
Okay.
Not necessarily a security guard, but an on-site supervisor.
People fresh out of prison is just not going to have it.
It's not a post-detention facility.
Other questions for Carl? Thank you again, Carl.
Thank you.
Good job, Carl. I know people had concerns with the loss of the playground equipment, but this is private property. Anybody who moves in could take it over and take the parking away from the playground. I mean, they could sell it to anybody.
That's true.
That's not a guarantee if this does or doesn't go into the area.
Silver. I'm with the playground.
Where's right there? I think it's right here right now. So it's still.
It's not very clear on the map.
Was not very clear on what.
The playground equipment location.
Oh.
He was trying to decipher where it was on the map.
Ryan,
Yes.
is there any way that we could get a zoning map that is specifically like this
That has that area.
Because there's not one in here.
That is a great question. Do we have the ability of getting a zoning map that we can look at? Is there one on hand that? Okay. I did look at it online prior to coming here.
Because looking at the inset from the applicant, it doesn't look like it's that far off the main drag. It doesn't look like it's so, it's not that it's in the middle of a neighborhood.
It is on the edge.
Yeah, it seems quite off. The church is there.
Yeah, so this is Yellowstone. Then you have all these office buildings.
The church is there. This is the zoning map.
Because this gives us Yellowstone, this gives us the applicant property.
So we have commercial general.
This is commercial general. This is light industrial.
High density right next door.
There
This is
is
residential
high
medium
density over
density.
here, correct?
Like it's 2 blocks away.
This property is.
Okay, so that is those little apartments that are right next to like Winco.
Correct.
And a row of single-family residential.
So if you look at the zoning map, it doesn't feel like it's really that, I don't know, I mean, to me it doesn't.
It just is a form of, I don't know, it's gerrymandering. It's pulling into something.
But we've done this before. We've done it on storage units. We've done it on duplexes.
We've done contract rezonings, and the difference being is that the neighborhood wouldn't,
We put that contract zone right next to Country High School.
and the neighborhood wouldn't do a bit. If the community accepts it, then the community speaks, but when the community doesn't accept it, I just have a hard time seeing it being successful. Because they're gonna have a long fight.
It's their fight, not ours.
I know it's their fight, I guess,
She has a right to.
and they do.
Yeah.
So then maybe the question to the public is, what, if anything, would alleviate their concerns?
And it is a good question, but I don't think that we're gonna give any.
I don't think so either.
I just think that no matter what you do, and again, even if it were a private development, I think that there's going to be this opposition that's going to be out there, and I don't think that it gets supported for a zone change. And the difficult part of it, and this is my view, but the difficult part of it is the purpose. And the purpose is good. The purpose is great. We all want that to happen. And that's what makes it difficult, and that's why we're in the law. Because there's principles of goodness that we stand on, and then the principles in the dirt, as Jim put it, that others are standing on.
So if it wasn't rezoned, if it remained residential medium, how many units, I guess, could they have? And I'm not asking would it be worth it, how many?
And that's a question we can ask Carl. I don't remember that coming up. How many units could they put on that if it were just... But they feel comfortable with 18? No, if it were not to be rezoned. Oh, we never asked that.
No, it wasn't.
Hey, Carl, can we have you back?
You like to see some.
My steps tonight.
Yes, you are. So our question now is, having it in the residential medium density zoning, this particular acreage, how many units could be put on that under the current zoning?
Under the current zoning is residential medium density single family. Multifamily is not permitted, which is why this is here in front of you. If this were subdivided and duplexes were placed there, you could have, this is not accounting for, this is just numbers, so not accounting for access, utilities, things like that, just lot size requirements. You could have 17 duplexes with, for a total of 7 duplexes for 14 units. Now, the next step up would be residential medium density multifamily. Same for duplexes as the residential medium density single family. If it were multifamily, it would be 15 units per multi.
So,
one more unit.
okay.
Under the zoning that is being proposed?
No, under the, it would be, there are 5 residential zones.
Oh, okay.
These are kind of the 3, residential medium density single family, residential medium density multifamily, and then residential high density.
Gotcha. Okay. Other questions, clarification? Okay, thanks
Thank
again,
you.
Carl.
See you in a minute.
See you in a minute. Okay. So, even if the zoning were to stay and an applicant on that property wanted to put in 14 units, 7 duplexes, they could do that without coming before us. All they would have to do is submit for a building permit. But if they wanted to make it transitional housing, it would still require a conditional use permit that would instigate the public hearing process and whether, I don't even know if you can do transitional housing with duplex units like that in that location.
If you could, for the sake of argument, so 14 unit duplexes, let's say that there's only 2 people per unit, you're looking at 28 people versus you've got one building that has 12 units, the other building that has 6 units. Let's say that there's 3 people per, that's 30 people total. It's a difference of 2 people. And chances are you're not gonna have only 2 people in those 14 units. You're probably looking at families of 3 or 4.
Sorry, Carl.
Why don't you just pull the chair?
Here, I got a seat for you. Yeah, sit there.
So can you talk to us about transitional housing in the duplex scenario?
Sure. So transitional housing under our code is not permitted in this zone. The definition that I think we're talking about is the HUD definition. What this is group living supervised. Under the duplex unit, that would certainly depend on how that application came in. If there is on-site service, if there are on-site services proposed, and if it's under this programming, my thoughts would be that they would still need a conditional use permit, assuming on-site supervisor, one of the units being dedicated to that supervisor, providing additional services on-site. Again, I mean, that would, a lot of that would depend on the application that came before us for something like that. Kind of a round peg square hole.
Okay.
Sorry, I kind of missed that. So, under RMS, single family, 14 duplexes, that would be allowed with the group living?
It's a group living supervised is conditionally permitted use in all residential zones and commercial.
Okay.
So the conditional use
So it still
permit
needs a
would
conditional use
still
permit
have
if it's
to
operated with the services and the programming as currently associated with this facility. If we just flip-flopped from multifamily to duplexes, but with the same programming, it still requires CUP.
So that eliminates this hearing that we're doing tonight.
It would still require a subdivision application because they are duplexes and multifamily is not permitted. Duplexes are permitted on individual lots in the RMS zone.
Okay, so we would be looking at a subdivision application, and then whether the conditional use permit, depending on how much acreage was involved in that conditional use permit, we could see that as well. Otherwise, it may go to the hearing examiner.
Is there?
No, there's not.
Okay, I don't want to say that.
No, and I think that's okay to say. There, if it were to go under the subdivision, there is not a public hearing, but for the conditional use permit, there would be. Correct.
And I should also point out, too, that if the daycare were to maintain in effect, the parking for the daycare would still need to be addressed. So that,
even with
talking numbers aside, that would still need to be accounted for.
Okay. So that I guess what you're implying is that could eat into their density?
Correct.
And getting 14 units might be difficult.
Is the daycare property owned by the same people who own the property?
It is.
So it's all one, the same
They're owned by
owner?
Grace Lutheran.
You can take a seat, I guess.
I'll be right there.
Yeah, probably safest to stick around. Okay, does any of the information that we've gathered
It doesn't really
change anything?
I mean, instead of, it's like 2 months from now, we just vote on the same CUP, right?
Right. Well, yeah, the conditional use permit, though, is going to be more focused on the actual what is taking place on the property. Right now, we're looking at the zoning, and I know it's hard to separate the two.
Yeah.
Right now, we are looking at the dirt and not necessarily what is all, what the business plan, I guess, is going to be. But the conditional use permit will look heavily at that.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about.
I wonder how we would feel if we didn't know what was proposed as the business. If we were just looking at it as rezoning high density for question mark.
Right.
I don't even know if you're allowed to do an application that way.
I think anybody can apply. Obviously, staff is going to have questions. We're going to have questions on why should we approve this.
Right.
And if they don't give sufficient answers, then there's no way that that I would think it would get approved.
Probably not. So the why really ends up being the factor.
Yes.
I live in the university neighborhood. I have a fraternity on the corner of my street. There are cop cars there this weekend. They're partying a little crazy. I live 4 blocks from Aid for Friends. I also live near, Mocha Java, where the gentleman was shot by the person who was mentally ill, who lived in the housing very nearby. All those things have happened in my neighborhood. My housing prices still go up. I still walk around after dark. I love my neighbors. I love my neighborhood. And I feel very safe in it. I think people will adjust to this and they will realize diversity is a good thing. I love all the places in my neighborhood.
I would like to make a motion.
Okay, Jack, let's hear it.
I'd like to recommend approval of the application from the Grace Lutheran Church to rezone by contract the property located at the 1200 block of Pershing Avenue to be rezoned residential high density to allow for greater density to be operated as a supervised group living facility. Finding the application does meet the standards for approval under 17.02.130 of Pocatello Municipal Code if the following conditions are met. And that's staff conditions and the business plan that was originally proposed by.
Okay, so there's been a motion. Is there a second?
Can you reiterate what the motion was, please?
Would you like me to repeat that?
Yes, please,
Yes, thank
Aislinn.
you.
It's been motioned to recommend approval of City Council of the application from the Grace Lutheran Church to rezone by contract the property located in the 1200 block of Pershing Avenue to be rezoned residential high density to allow for greater density multi-family dwelling to be operated as a supervised group living facility finding the application does meet standards for approval under Chapter 17.02.130 of Pocatello Municipal Code if the conditions listed in the staff report are met and a resolute business plan is met before coming before City Council.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion. With no discussion, Aislinn, would you call the vote?
Moore,
Yes.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Burns,
No.
Ricks,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Satterfield.
No. Motion carries. That concludes our meeting for the evening. Thank you for coming.